Hello, hello. Welcome to the OE Cast, the Ordinarily Extraordinary podcast, the podcast that wants to help you to be extraordinary. Take the ordinaries of life, make them extraordinary through the power of God to be missionary disciples. Today we have my good friend Nick Maille as our guest. Welcome in, Nick. Hello,
Thanks.
Nick. How's it going?
Great. I'm excited to be here.
Chat, if you are there and you see any issues, it's the first time we're doing this live. So if you find any issues, like either of us are too quiet or anything like that, please let me know and I will adjust those. But yeah, Nick, how are you?
I'm well. I had a very filling day of hanging out with Max and getting all the giggles in with him. So it was great.
Nice, yeah. That's my life every day. So yeah, it's good. You want to introduce yourself a little bit to the people?
Yeah. My name's Nick. From Vermont. Grew up on a dairy farm. Currently, I work in construction. I do interior. So I do a lot of mud taping, sanding, painting, a lot of finished stuff. Yeah, born and raised Catholic, cradle Catholic, as most people would say, and
Could you bring the mic closer to you? I think Kelly says you're a little low.
I'm quiet. That's rare. Usually I'm not blamed. That's not something I struggle with.
That is very accurate.
Usually I'm the loud one. But yeah, went to UVM. That's kind of where we met. And at that point, I kind of lost my faith, and then kind of came back and did 2 years of focus, 4 years as a campus minister, and now I'm just pursuing God.
Nice. Yeah, I think, what was that? We had 2 years together, right? And then you joined staff?
Yes. Yeah.
Vermont. What a wild place. What a wild place to be a missionary. Of all places. I forgot to pull up my notes. Let me go. Actually, I think I'm going to grab my other phone. Yes, I have 2 phones. All right. Chat, give me a second here. Just going to grab my notes. Now, Nick will entertain you in the meantime. Nick, tell us more about yourself.
Oh, I could do that all day. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I like to think myself. My Instagram handle is Misplaced Vermonter, and I acquired that name when I was at UConn. Because apparently I talked about Vermont so much to my students that, oh my gosh, Nick loves Vermont, and so I like to call myself the unofficial official ambassador of Vermont.
Yeah, I think one thing we had kind of in common, somewhat in common, is so at focus training, I always had a bottle of sriracha with me. Nick here had a bottle of maple syrup with him everywhere he went. So, there's some similarity there, but a little bit different in execution.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, good times. Oops, my phone was off. Yeah, I actually have 2 phones. Funny enough. Because when I switched to T-Mobile, they offered another line for free.
Oh.
So I just use it separate to keep work stuff separate from my personal phone.
Nice.
It's actually been great. But yeah, we talked about it a little bit. We met in Vermont as I was a missionary on your campus. Nick was in discipleship with one other missionary who had left that campus, and I was coming in and kind of took over from there. That was actually funny. When I took over, I was new to Focus, so I didn't really know discipleship all that well. But I know that when you said that, what we did for discipleship was I went with my discipler to buy pants, to shop for pants. I was like, okay, I'm no expert, but I think there should be more to discipling somebody and than that. So that was what I was coming into that year.
Yeah, I think it was that, and then we would play hockey. Those are the two things that we did. And
Yeah.
yeah.
For clarity, as my wife has asked, what is discipleship? What is focus? I think discipleship we will go into a little bit because I do think that there is a level to what we're going to talk about today, which is authentic friendship. And focus stands for Fellowship of Catholic University Students. So if you're not aware, this is a organization founded by Curtis Martin, and he basically focus, no pun intended actually that time, it's focused on evangelizing on college campus, so bringing the gospel to college students, one of the most crucial time in a person's life, during the time when they would be most formed, to have the most impact, to basically evangelize the world, through Bible studies, discipleship, and mentorship. So yeah, that is focus. You can go to our website if you want more information, focus.org. Once a missionary was a missionary. So
Yes.
gotta throw in a
Yes.
plug. It's actually funny, Nick, one time I was in someone's stream and it's a guy named Bearded Blevins. I don't know if you know who Ninja is.
Yes.
His brother is very Catholic. He actually streams as well. Founded a company, Little Flower Media. I'm not even sponsored by them, just shouting them out. They're an awesome group. But he had a stream that he partnered with Focus on. They actually streamed on Twitch one of the Focus talks, and somebody was asking questions about like Focus, and I was like answering it, but I was like, we Focus, yeah, what we do. So it just sticks. You're just like, yeah.
Well,
Always been a Focus missionary, always will be, I guess.
I feel like focus for staff who are leaving, or they call it transitioning. They always say that, you were paid to be a missionary. Now you get to go be a missionary for free because you don't ever stop being a missionary. So it's just like, wait a minute, I got. So.
Yep.
Yeah, very true.
But yeah, so today's topic, we're going to be talking about authentic friendship. So, I don't know. I think a good place to start is, we've talked a little bit about our friendship. I think, we go back a while. I think we talked about it a little bit the other day that we haven't caught up in a while. And it's life, but maybe I'm being presumptuous. I'm about to get roasted here online. But I still think like even though we have kind of this gap, I still think our friendship is still very strong, very real, right? It's like we take time from communicating, but when we do, it feels like we're in discipleship again. I'm just like,
yeah,
oh, here we go again.
Yeah, I always feel like whenever we do catch up, even though it's maybe several months, we go deep, and it's not like, you need to earn my trust again. You need to earn, this place where I can be vulnerable with you, but no, we just can jump right in, and it's really awesome. So.
And friends longer, with him longer than I have. That's actually true. Our friendship's longer than with my wife. I've known him longer than my wife. Yeah, because I didn't really know Kelly till halfway through the school year.
Man, that's crazy.
Like I knew of her, but I think it was you actually that invited me to hang out at their apartment.
Oh yes.
And then that's like I was like, oh, I gotta hang out with students. It's my job, right? So I was like, my disciples invited me. Like. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go. And that's kind of like what I got into, like, getting to know Kelly. And
wow, I didn't know that. Matchmaker.
Look at
here.
that. Yeah. Is that your one success? But yeah, I think that kind of brings us to where I want to start is that there's kind of, it's going to be repeated. I think everybody talks about friendship, talks about this, like the levels of friendship, right? There's the 4 levels of friendship. There's 1, acquaintance, 2, casual friends, 3, close friends, 4, intimate friendship. And I think, I could be wrong. I guess it does depend on the people, but I think once you get to that 4th level of intimate friendship, it's kind of hard to like really go back. Like no matter how much time has passed, when you do come back to that, you do feel like the friendship is as it was before. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that there are definitely a handful of friendships, and those are definitely the closest ones where it's like, man, I haven't seen you in a while, or they move away or they come back and it's been a while, but like you can just pick up right where you left off, and nothing has changed. And even though you both might have changed as persons, like the dynamics within the relationship, that friendship, they don't seem to change, and I think it just makes it easy to just fall back into that previous friendship.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure other people can relate as well. Yeah, there's those. Yeah, it's just so easy to pick up again, and I think that which I do want to go into is just that there is a certain depth to that friendship that causes that, right? That almost like time doesn't really affect that friendship as much. But yeah, just to briefly go over, I mean, they're kind of straightforward. Acquaintance, this is just somebody that you just know. You know them.
I feel like that was like us when like we first met, because like when we met it was like, oh, Nick's your disciple, Eugene's your discipler. Okay, cool, nice to know you. Like
Yeah.
And it was just kind of almost business. And it was just like we knew that there was something there would be something deeper there, but like
Right.
we really hadn't connected or really made anything, and so it was like trying to feel each other out. And
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Like, yeah, it was in a sense forced.
yeah, we were voluntold friendships.
It's like, yeah, you will be friends.
Enjoy.
Yeah, that's what Joe basically told me. This is Nick. He's a student here. He's now your friend. Get to it. But no, I think that's it in the practical sense, that these are people's coworkers. It's okay. People you go to mass with. People you run the server at your Starbucks, if you go to Starbucks, which has terrible coffee, so you shouldn't go there anyway. You should go to Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes.
But like these are the people that you run into, but you don't really have that depth. It could be like classmates as well. Like you are in the same place by chance or for a reason, and that's it. Like maybe you're friendly towards each other, maybe you're not, but it's just there's nothing deeper than that, right?
Yeah, I feel like it could be like there's the practical side of things to be like, oh yeah, like you said, work relationship, or like classmates when you're like group project, or it could be like, oh wow, this person has the same interest, but I've never spent any time with them, so it's just like, oh, I know of that person vaguely.
Yeah. I think in the context, because a lot of people here, or a lot of people probably watching, are like friends that I know online. So it could be the people that are in the Twitch chat that you're there because you both watch the same streamer, but you don't really know each other. And I haven't had that, like any deep connection, any deep conversation to really connect on a deeper level. And we are getting kind of starting to touch on that casual friendship, right? Where, again, it's like by chance, but you do interact pretty regularly, right? So I work for a big company. But I have my smaller team. So like my smaller team would be probably more my casual friendships, because I do work with them regularly. I interact with them regularly. We share life essentially on a regular basis. But it's work. It's some kind of meme, some kind of joke.
Yeah.
We're sharing, but I'm not going into that friendship talking about like anything really. Like
personal or
deep. This is what happened in my prayer today.
Yeah.
My manager's like, I just need you to do this data report for me, please.
Yeah, I feel like it's when people ask you how you are, like, oh, how you been?
Yeah.
It's just like you're not gonna share like, oh yeah, this is really something really bad happened to me. You're gonna be like, well, I've been better, and this, that, and the other, but you're not gonna burden them with because there's not that relationship there yet.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's the people who ask, hey, how's it going? And you go, good. That's it. And that's it. It's like, you're not going to go into what happened, anything. Just, oh, yeah, it was good. Like, that's it. It's the people that ask, how are you, but don't really actually care how are you. Maybe they do a little bit, but not really. Not really.
Yeah. Or at least they haven't spent the time to build that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then, there's that close friendship. And that close friendship is yeah, that taking that kind of step from there, right? Then you actually share. Like when it's the people who say, "How are you?" and then you cry. I'm just kidding. That's
It's just like pull up a chair, grab some snacks. It's a long story. Strap in.
yeah.
It's a bumpy
That
ride.
was actually an inside joke. One of my friends had asked another friend, "How are you?" at like a party or this event, and she was actually not doing well, and she just started crying because he legitimately asked, like, "How are you?" and it just.
Oh,
But yeah, so these are the people who will actually ask, like, "How are you?" and you actually like have a conversation about that. And I think, yeah, actually, like, I think you brought up a very actually maybe I'll bring this up in a little bit and go over intimate friendship. But yeah, these are the people that like you actually go and talk, yeah, to a large degree about like going in depth. But I think there is a line between an intimate friendship.
there is.
I don't know how you define that.
I would say that, like a close friendship is someone that was like, you might share those maybe struggles, but you might not go into the minute details or like the deepest vulnerabilities. And then when you get that intimate friendship, that's when you share those like really, really hard things. And you might be like, okay, yeah, I'm struggling with these things, but it still might be on a maybe more of a general level. And then the intimate friends are those ones where you just like sit down and you hash it all out with them, and you don't really leave anything kind of hidden from them. I guess that's where at least I would draw the line.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think a good line actually is like a close friendship, and a close friendship ends like the line ends where it starts to hurt. And then the intimate friendship is when you go beyond that hurt, right? Like you really talk about the nitty gritty of things.
Yeah.
This could be spiritual, it could be mental, it could be, maybe physical. I don't know. Depends on the person. I would say it's physically painful to talk to Joey. I'm just kidding. I don't even know if you can hear this, but Joey's a friend of ours from Vermont. Yeah, they actually, I'm going to share this because I thought it was hilarious. We were at a friend's wedding earlier this year, and I said, Joey, you remind me a lot of Ben Shapiro. And I'm pretty sure he's a big fan, but so he was kind of flattered, and he asked me, like, why? Because I think he wanted to get more of a compliment.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into it. But that's what I got the sense for. And then I said, because you both have such a punchable face. Yeah, but I just like to mess with Joey. It's just too fun. It's just too fun.
It's fun to get him going. It's fun to get him going.
But yeah, I think that's the line of it starts to hurt a little bit to actually go into it. But it's like there's that level of trust that you have to be able to get there.
I also feel like I always look at it like, if you're shooting arrows or archery, you have the targets and you have the circles, and like your acquaintance is going to be the outside circle, and then your casual friends is maybe more towards the middle, and then you have, as you get more intimate with those friendships, your circle and how many there are definitely like decreases. And so I feel like for a while I didn't really have a line between intimate and close friends, and it was just like, oh, I have like X amount of people that I share these, and then I realized, well, hold on, you should really scale that back. There should only be a handful of people that you're actually really intimate, and not to exclude those people who are close friends, but like you need to be very intentional with who those intimate friends are, because I feel like that God did put those people in your life. He puts all the people in our lives, but specifically more so to give you certain graces, or they have gifts that are going to call you to him. And so I think there's definitely lines in terms of, it's a lot smaller group, and the pool is a lot smaller with who you're going to be more intimate with.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was gonna say. I think it's a good analogy. You do start to discern like who those people are, and I think there's some practical aspects of it, right? Like if sometimes you go through things and it takes hours to talk about, like imagine you had like 20 people who were intimate friends, and you're like, so here's what happened, and you spend hours telling them, and then you get a call from another person, and you do that 20 times. It's almost 2 days worth of just talking about what happened. But yeah, there is that level of like, uh, yeah, the level of yeah, just a number in a practical sense, but also just, I mean, we really like we are limited in the capacity that we can give ourselves to other people, which ultimately is what that is, right?
Yeah, I think I never really realized that um until I left my first year. So I left UConn and went to University of Rhode Island for my second year when I was on staff with Focus. And I started thinking, okay, I have all my college friends from UVM. I have all my Focus friends, and I think there was like 900 missionaries. I wasn't friend with every single one, but like I being an extroverted person, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to be as many friends with as many people as possible. And it's like I have all my UConn students who like became friends, and then it's like, well, now I have to create room for all of these students at Rhode Island. I don't know how many or who they will be, but I'm gonna have to create space. And it's like I can't keep meaningful friendships and relationships with all these people, and it's like I needed to whittle those down. And it was like, well, how the heck do I do that? And it was really tough because I realized that like there's some level of reciprocation in friendships. And I think for a while I would give and give and give and reach out and reach out and reach out and reach out, and then I was like, well, hold on, who's reaching out back to me, who's reciprocating, like where are those two-way roads?
Yeah.
And it really became like prominent to me when I had 4 Yukon guys. Not all of them were guys that I worked with, but they reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, we want to go ski in Vermont. Do you want to come like in the winter?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, definitely."
Yeah.
And it became a tradition, like those 4 guys, and that was like a very clear example for me of, oh, these guys are people that are reciprocating. These are people that I want to invest. They're investing in me.
Yeah.
I'm going to invest back in them because there's only so much time and so much energy you can give to people. And it's not that I didn't want to invest in other people, but I had to make that prudent decision of I only have so much energy.
Right.
You know, who is filling me, you know, and not in a selfish way, but it's just like, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one point that I wanted to make sure that I brought up is friendship has to be reciprocated, right? There's that saying, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and it's the same for a friendship. Like if you think that you have an intimate friendship with somebody, and they don't, you don't have an intimate friendship. Like,
Yeah.
that's the reality of it. It has to be mutual. It has to be both ways. And I think that kind of backing up a little bit, you brought up like our discipleship relationship, right? And I think it's a good example because we kind of went through those phases, right? Like I said, we were basically a forced friendship. It's
Yep.
like, hey, this student's in discipleship. You are now his disciple because his former disciple, like left campus. So you go.
Yeah.
Here's your new friend. And that's how it started. And I think if you think back to our early conversations, like discipleship, it was like, how's prayer? Oh, it's good. We didn't really go deep into like, what are you praying about? Like, what's happening, right? And then we started building a casual friendship. Like we'd go, what did we do? We played pool on campus a few times.
Yep.
I don't know, the game nights, like I mentioned.
Yep. We
things
played
like
a
that.
lot of fibbage.
A lot of fibbage. A lot of fibbage. Yeah.
To the point where we knew all the answers and it didn't become fun anymore.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, we started doing those things, and we were doing the same things, and eventually got to that casual friendship where it's like we're finding out the things we had in common, and doing those things, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, and I don't want to class creep on one of the things that I think we'll kind of get into, but I think initially there was an element of, I don't know if there was too much that we like connected on or just had natural like things that we clicked on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, this kid from California,
Yeah.
and like like what a, and it was just became like over time I think we developed things that we mutually enjoyed or
Yeah.
we shared. I think another thing that we'd do is you would invite a bunch of guys over, and then you'd take turns cutting their hair. You opened up a barber shop, and then the rest of us would be playing video games. And then we would kind of just, as you were cutting our hair, we would just talk and chat. And I
Yeah.
think it's interesting because I would never have pegged you to be one of those intimate friends or, just like, there's nothing we have in common. Like,
Right.
not really when you look at it.
Right.
But when you peel back the layers, there was definitely things that we built upon and kind of explored.
Right.
And that's kind of what it grew into and kind of where it came from.
Yeah. I think we just put in the effort for it.
Yes.
And it, like
yes.
you said, it wasn't natural. I don't
Yes.
think. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, you being from Vermont, me from California, there just naturally were a lot of differences in who we are, our interests. I think maybe the one thing is that we both grew up on a farm.
Yes. Yeah.
Slightly different farms.
Yeah. Shout out to Farmag.
Shout out to the farmers.
Our fake
Cheers.
club that we created on campus.
But yeah, I forgot about Farmag. Wow, that's a throwback.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I think as we naturally did that, eventually we started to get to that like closeness. I think, and that's when I think that's when the campus like really took off.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because it was just like I think I started to realize, oh, Eugene actually like cares about me. Like, he wants me to grow in my faith. He wants me to be a better person. And I think you started challenging me. And like there developed like these communication channels of like honesty, where it's just like we could be real with one another and we could be like, and I think that opened up a whole new area of growth for us because we went from, okay, now we started building these things that we could do together to let's take it to the next step and let's go through some things that are tough. Let's push each other back. Like let's call each other to new heights, to different levels. And I think that's what kind of started solidifying that intimacy, that kind of stands the test of time. Is like, we kind of went through battle, with some stuff and
I think that goes into kind of what I was saying. It's like you got to the point where it hurts. That's like say iron sharpens iron, right? And we got to that point where it's like now we're starting to like be honest with each other. It's like, this is where I'm struggling. This is where it hurts basically, and that's when we started pushing each other towards. All right, let's both grow in these areas. Let me push you to do this. Challenge me in this, and and it was reciprocated because I think we built that intimacy of where it's like, okay, this is a person that I actually care about to get to heaven. Be a saint. And it's starting to creep into the next thing kind of want to talk about, which is along with that is the 3 types of friendship, right? I think that's the Aristotelian.
Aristotle kind of pushed these, and
the idea of there's 3 types of friendships: pleasure, utility, and virtuous. And the virtuous part is that line, I think, of this is an intimate friendship, right? And in the Christian life, it's about achieving sainthood, where you start to challenge each other. It's like, all right, this is who I'm taking with me, like, to heaven. Like, this is we're gonna push each other. And that's where that's where it is. It's like this is the guy I'm fighting next to. I think it was the was it 300? Like, the whole idea is that they had like one guy that they kind of like shared, like they spent their life with.
Yes.
And
yeah,
so
they
that
had
when
their
they're on the
companion.
battlefield, when you're on the battlefield, it's like, this is my companion, this is like my buddy.
He's gonna die for me, and I'm gonna die for him.
Exactly, and that's like, that's where you cross that line into virtuous friendship.
It's actually interesting. I love Band of Brothers. I've watched it so many times, and it's really interesting. There's one episode where it's like replacements, and so the squad is getting so depleted. They're losing so many numbers, to the point where they get these new guys that weren't there at the beginning of training when they started boot camp, and didn't go through the hardships, and didn't jump with them or didn't landed them in Normandy. They didn't land Normandy. They jumped for Operation Market Garden. But it comes to a point where they notice that the veterans really struggled to trust the replacements. And you started seeing pools of all these veterans, and then the green guys, and it's like, yeah, this guy's gonna die tomorrow. What, like, because they had learned all these skills, and the replacements didn't know anything. And so it just shows the strength of like the bonds that you create over time and through hardship. You will choose that over something that's brand new or something that you hasn't shared experiences with.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely an element of the strength of the friendship is going to be determined by what kind of lived experiences you have. Like they talk about this a lot. Like people who go through like life and death situations. Like it's like a connection that they will always have. That's like nothing's going to take that away, and it does create that depth. And I think that. Excuse me. Oh, that was a burp. Hopefully a mic didn't pick that up. But it's like kind of sometimes what I feel when I meet like somebody new who's Catholic, like very strongly Catholic, like you kind of, I don't know, you kind of get the sense sometimes of like how faithful of a Catholic they are, like not fully, right? At least immediately, but yeah, like even some people that I meet online, just like we bond over the fact that we're Catholic, and that you kind of already have a presupposition that they have like they care about you to a certain degree, right? Like that they also want you to go to heaven because they are striving for heaven.
Yeah.
I'll just say it's just like it's an immediate connection, and like you almost skip levels of like a friendship. I just find that it's always fascinating that happens.
Yeah, I think like one of the things that allows you to get to that intimate friendship or that virtuous friendship is, are they running in the same direction as you?
Yeah.
Because I had friends that were I thought were really close. Maybe they were close friends, not intimate friends. And, didn't really have the same belief systems as them. And that was the thing that like prevented any intimacy or any virtue, because they weren't promoting any virtue. And it was like, I want to run in this direction. You're not running that direction. It's going to be a greater struggle. It's going to be a lot harder to achieve where I want to go if you're not running the same direction as me. And it was really tough to see friends that I was really close with, but throughout the years, they started drifting away. And then it's just kind of like, well, who's left? Who am I running with? And I think it's just, you start to see who's running in the same direction. And those are the people that you can be like, okay, yeah, this person cares about me. They have a basic understanding of, my value as a human being. They desire, like, I think realizing like, oh, Eugene wants me to go to heaven. Okay, I can trust him with certain things. It's not just somebody who wants a good performance review or, whatever. It's like you care, that they care about you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, like I mentioned, I wanted to go into discipleship. I think discipleship is a very key piece because, like you mentioned, that's kind of how our friendship developed. But really, discipleship is like the best example I have is St. Paul, right? He says, imitate me as I imitate Christ.
Yes,
And that's essentially what discipleship is, right? It's like I'm trying to be as Christ-like as possible so that you can copy me and you also be as Christ-like as possible. And I think that discipleship is a good example of friendship because if you look at Jesus and his disciples, right? I think it that kind of covers everything we talked about. He had a group of friends, 12 of them. They all were following Jesus, and Jesus is God, so they're all pursuing heaven, essentially. And he's teaching them and giving them what they need spiritually. And then we also have very particular way. He has three, Peter, James, and John.
Yep.
That we see multiple times in the Bible. He's like pulls them aside.
They go to the Transfiguration.
Yeah, in the Transfiguration,
Garden,
in the
Gethsemane.
in the garden. They went deeper with him, and there is, like you said, there's that limitation, right? Like as you go from that target from the outside to the inside, it's like all these 12, but there's these 3 that Jesus seems to invest in and like care about in a different way. Like he's God, so obviously he loves them infinitely as they need, as to fill them. But yeah, he has a very particular special way of like investing in them. All right, and Yeah, that's kind of what we saw in discipleship. Like, I mean, it was you and Robert.
It's funny. At UVM, we had a large group of guys that enjoyed hunting, so hunting analogies went over really well. And so we would always talk about like, okay, I can be as effective. Like I can use a shotgun and try to reach as many people as possible, but I'm not going to be able to spend time with them. I'm not going to be able to invest in them. Or I could use a rifle and like go really deep with somebody. And you see Jesus doing that, like. And even the analogy that we were talking about with, the 4 levels of friendship, you have the people who might have listened to a talk or, him preach, those would be the acquaintances. Then you'd maybe have, disciples or people who would come pretty regularly, the casual friendships. Then maybe the apostles, that would be the close friendships. And then you have the 3, and that would be the intimate, friendship there. And so you kind of see that even with Christ, he focuses on a few and entrusts them with that wisdom, that knowledge, love, and mercy to go out and kind of spread it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think what you're just saying actually kind of leads into the next point that I wanted to make is I think one of the things, and this is just a theory, so maybe you can disagree with me and prove me wrong, but I think a friendship, any type of relationship really, is most perfected when it's open, if that makes sense. So like for example, like when we were doing ministry, so like one of the things that I always taught when I was missionary as team director is that like let your friendship be the tool for evangelization, right? Like back up, like even like long before, like when I first had my conversion, I had it through a mission trip in Japan. Met some students, and they kind of came into the fold of like our entire group. They kind of met the whole group of our mission trip. And I remember this girl, her name is Jan. She talked about like how it seemed like we had been friends for so long. So the mission trip was 3 weeks. Before we left for Japan, we had like 2-3 days of like training or like prep work for it. And when I got there, that was the first time I met these people. Like, I met them for 3 days, and we went to Japan. And I think by the time we met the student, it was maybe like a week into the trip or something, or less. But she had said, it's like, it seems like you guys have known each other for so long. And the thing was that whenever we were, because we were on campus in Japan, a college campus there, and we were basically reaching out to students in presenting the gospel to students, but it was always in pairs, right?
Yeah.
But it was that openness of a third person, right? It's like we are strong friends, and then somebody comes along and they like see that and they're drawn into it, right? And I think an example is like marriage, right? Like 2 people are in love, they're married, and then they have a child named Maximus.
It's funny you bring that up because I was thinking, it's like, oh, that's the Trinity. You have the Father and the Son, and then as a result, you have the Holy Spirit is the fruit of that relationship.
Yeah. I think that's another key piece that's important for authentic friendship. Like, if your friendship is just so closed off, I don't think that's actually a good friendship.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was thinking, some of the friends that I have up in Burlington, we've been talking about that. Like, we like the intimacy that we have, but we also recognize that, like, if our friendships are of that agape love, that selfless love, we need to share. Like, our cups need to overflow, and we need to be bringing in other people. Otherwise, like, our friendships aren't what we thought they were, and
right.
We're not doing what God is calling us to. And
right.
And so I think we recognize that, like, we need to be bringing other people into this. There needs to be a sharing, a desire to share what we love.
Right.
Sharing the love that we have, the community, the bonds, the activities that we do, and that's really you tell the fruit. You can tell it by its fruit.
Tell the tree by its fruit.
So yeah, if you don't see that fruit happening, then it's like, okay, maybe we need to tweak some things here.
Yeah. And obviously there's limitations, right? There's certain like it doesn't necessarily mean that they're now part of that. You're not growing that middle, circle,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah,
there's the sense of that, like there is room for others in that, and I think that does speak into the nature of the church, right? Like
yeah,
that's the idea, is that these people love each other so much. Like you don't know everybody in the church, but the people that are near you, you love them so much that they pour out that love, and it's like kind of like this growing thing, and kind of like the the spiritual multiplication that Focus teaches us, right? Like you invest in three, they invest in three, and eventually you cover the whole world. And it's a similar thing, I think, with the relationships. But yeah, you don't. I guess a good example is like marriage. You're just married to your spouse. There's
yeah.
no room for anybody else in that. Contrary to popular belief, our society thinks that you can have somebody else involved in that relationship. But even my son, it's a different relationship.
Poor Max.
And then there's there's other people who go even further than that. Will Smith. Anyway.
I think it's interesting too, because even for those, I don't want to say lesser friendships, because like casual friendships are still good and important, and as long as you recognize the priorities and where they lie. But like even casual friendships or close friendships, inviting them to like get little snippets or like glances or just like little peeks into what that life is, not really showing everything, but really saying, oh, inspiring them, I feel like is a really good thing, because you can it's a really beautiful tool to kind of share with other people.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is kind of what I kind of believe, which is that you have to. It's almost like a discernment, right? You got to be aware of what your friendships are. Like, call it for what it is.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's healthy, right? It's like
yeah.
acknowledging, like, okay, this person is just like just a friend that I play this game with or something, like whatever it is, like. And I think that frees you, because there's a lot of people, I think, who have that like anxiety of like, I need to like this is an important friendship, I need to spend time with them, and they can't say no to these people, and it's like, hey, I want to go do this thing, and they have a hard time saying no. But it's like you just gotta acknowledge, like, this is a casual friendship, this is a friendship of just utility, like we get something out of it, like we get fun out of this, that's all it is. Like, let's be real and call it what it is. Like, if I say no, it's not gonna ruin my life, it shouldn't ruin yours. Like, it's just like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and I think it's good, like those like friendships of pleasure and utility, those are good friendships. They have purpose.
Right.
But you don't want to drag a friendship of utility out when it's no longer, worthwhile for either of you. Like if you're coworkers and you become friends through work and then you guys aren't working together, it's just like, unless you kind of grow into that virtuous friendship, there's nothing more there, and it's like, okay, you can't really hold on to this, you need to let go.
Yeah.
Because I feel like God it brings people into your life at certain times, and sometimes he allows them to stay, and then sometimes he's like, okay, this person came and served, like this friendship served its purpose, it's time to let go. And in order for you to receive that next graces from future relationships, you need to empty yourself of friendships that have kind of died or have run their course or have served their purpose and are fulfilled. And yeah, I think that's kind of what I learned, like when I left UConn, is like, okay, yeah, I can't be friends with all these people. I need to, as much as it is tough, I need to let these friendships go.
Yeah, and I think that it's kind of like what you were saying earlier. It's like, these are the people that I'm gonna run with, right? Like, these are people that we're running in the same direction. It goes back to that, because it's like, sometimes you do, like, there are people who are running in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to bring them with you, like, you're tethered. Like, you basically tether yourself in this, like, they're pulling you backwards.
Yeah.
Like, and you're trying to run forward. You're doing double work.
Yeah, it makes me think of when I came back into the faith, and so I transferred to UVM. I did like a year and a half, transferred to UVM, and a lot of my high school friends were, at UVM, which is like, oh, okay, like I have a lot of friends. I know UVM really well. I originally didn't want to go to UVM at all, but I started hanging out with them, and I was like, okay, I should go to Mass. Started going to Mass, and then I was invited to go on this ski retreat, and I wasn't going to go on the ski retreat. but something, it's divine providence. I ended up going on the ski retreat, and it was really interesting because the friendships that I had, I saw like, oh yeah, these are close friendships. These are quote unquote good friendships. But I had never really been exposed to authentic friendships, intimate friendships, friendships where they respected you, valued you, and were running in the same direction, were vulnerable, and weren't afraid to tell you how it is. We're honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that first night on the retreat. One of our really good friends, I think I just said Caitlin. I saw her interacting with a couple other people, and I was like, wow, they care about each other. Like there's something genuine there. There's something authentic. It's real. No, there's no fake. There's no masks, and there's no alcohol. There's no drugs. There's nothing. It's just they want the other person to better their lives. They want what's best for the other person. And that kind of stuck with me because at the end of the retreat, I got a concussion. I encountered Christ, yada, 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 long story. But that stuck with me, and it became a point where it's like those other friends my high school friends, I had to cut them out because they were bringing me back into old sin and old habits and not virtuous things that were not going to bring me to God. And as much as it was tough, I had to cut out pretty much almost all of my previous friends that I had. And the Catholic Center kind of became my friend group, all of those people, because I knew that they cared. I knew that they were honest. I knew that they were running in the same direction as me. And it was like, oh, okay, these people are going to help me. They're going to teach me how to run in the faith. They're going to teach me how to tie my shoes spiritually. They're going to teach me good posture, using the running analogy. But they are going to help me because they care and not because they desire something else or something, in return. That selfless love.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that goes back to what we were saying, where it's like friendships can't be like one-sided, right? Like you may be wanting the best for somebody else, but that person might not want to. And I think that we have to have that discernment of like which friendships aren't authentic. Like,
yeah.
And we have to just kind of just pull the Band-Aid and just rip the Band-Aid off and just be
Yeah.
like, all right, sorry. Like, this is where I'm going. Like, this is like where I want to be. And in a lot of ways, like sometimes that's like a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I think that when you are willing to do that, and it's not always going to be the case, and probably 99% is not the case, but when you're willing to do that, like it kind of does, it's kind of an evangelization tool, right? Like sometimes you may have spent I don't know how many years with somebody, right? Like being friends, and then for you to be like, yeah, like I'm sorry, like I'm cutting things off. Like there's this part of you would hope that the person's like, this person must be doing this for a reason. Like there's gotta be a very important reason. Like if Jesus really is that valuable, like to some extent, it's like maybe I have to like look into this. It could be evangelization tool in that regard, but not always. I think majority of the time, it's just like, okay, bye.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think especially with our culture where it's heading, there's like you think of like, okay, if I keep my old friends, I would call it maybe pre-conversion, or friends that are not helping you towards God, maybe pulling you away, you're gonna end up in this lukewarmness. There's a poem that I really love, and it talks about you live a double life and only do half the living. And it's this idea of like, okay, you have people running this way, so I'm gonna go party with my friends, but then I gotta go to Sunday mass with my other friends, and it's just like there is only going to be one master in your heart, and you can't play these both sides. And so that lukewarmness, it's like there's no room for that. And I feel like we're getting to a cultural point where there's not going to be those people who, oh, I don't necessarily run with you, but I'm going to support you in that sense. And I think that's kind of falling away.
Yeah. I definitely think so. I think friendships look so different. It's just an example. I was talking to Kelly the other day. So there's this streamer that I watch, and he's playing Valorant, and he's playing online with a friend of his. Right, you can queue up together and he plays a duo. And they fill in 3 random people in the team. But the two of them, they're playing together for like hours, right? And they had a rough game and they were bickering. Like kind of basically like talking smack to each other. And a bunch of people in the chat are like, "Are you guys like mad at each other? Like, are you guys like not good? Like, are you guys no longer friends? Like, what?" Like, I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I saw that from my perspective of like, no, they're just really good friends.
Yeah.
Like, I think that when I think about like friends from tennis, like I played 4 years of tennis in high school, varsity tennis. Like if I was playing terrible, my friend would, because I played doubles for 2 rounds, I played 3 rounds. But anyway, my doubles partner, if I was playing terrible, would say I was terrible. It's like, "You're crap," and I go, "Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah."
It makes me think of a quote by my thing is Michelangelo, where he was talking about someone asked him about like, oh, like what gives you the inspiration for your sculptures, and it's like every block has a statue inside, and my task as a sculptor is to discover it and to remove all the excess pieces. And I feel like a lot of times there might be a piece over our shoulder that we can't quite reach, and we're trying to like perfect ourselves and chisel ourselves, and it's like there's that piece that we can't see in our blind spot, and it's our intimate, our virtuous friends' jobs. Like we have these people who be like, yes man, you have the friends who be like, oh, you're doing great, you hype people, and it's like real authentic virtuous friends are going to call you out on your crap, are going to be like, hey, I noticed this. And I think for us, there were a couple points where it's just like, wow, Eugene's really giving it to me. Like I'm getting grilled on this. Like what the heck, Eugene? Like why is he beating me up on this and not anything else? And it's just like later on, it's like because he saw flaws in me that I couldn't see, and I needed to be challenged, and I needed to grow in those, and you need people to call you out. Because you can't see what's in your blind spot.
And I think it's a good example too, because like if you think about if you were actually like had to be chiseled, like that would hurt, right?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like for the person to be willing to do that, it's like, yeah, this is gonna hurt, but it's gonna be good for you. Like, let me do that for you. It's like they're like the chiropractor. It's like popping your back feels great, but when you have a chiropractor to pop your back, it feels even better. But it does hurt, like to a certain extent. Like it does hurt to get there.
I think in addition to, there needs to be an openness from the recipient. Like for example, I needed to be open, and I'm very stubborn. And you were very patient, and it took a while to make me realize I need to trust Eugene. I need to trust that, sticking with the sculpting analogy, that he's going to chisel the right pieces, and he's not going to or he's not going to chisel my shoulder off or my arm, or there's going to be a dent back there. And, I need to trust that what he is doing and what he's chiseling off is what's needed.
Yeah. You can look at the disciples again as an example. Like Peter is a fantastic example of that. Like Jesus is like, "Peter, walk on the water. Come on." And he's like, "Okay." And then he starts to doubt, and it starts to sink. And then Jesus is just like, "Idiot, what are you doing doubting?" like you're literally on the water already. Yeah. Like at what point did you start to doubt? It's just like, what's wrong with you? Or even later on, where he's just where Peter's like, what does he say? It's like he's like, "No, I won't let them take you." And he's like, "Stand behind me, Satan."
Yes, yeah.
And it's like he literally called him Satan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I think vulnerability plays a big role, and that was one of the things that keeps coming back to me is vulnerability. So the vulnerability as like, you being the friend, but also vulnerability, I think with our relationship, you being my discipler, it was almost like, teacher student, as it should be, because, you were definitely challenging me in my faith. Right. And I guess I never realize I was challenging you to teach me in different ways. I was challenging you to be patient. But I think the moment that sticks out to me And you kind of brought it. Is we went back to that same ski retreat not the same year, but a future one,
Mhm.
and I taught you how to snowboard.
Mm. Yep.
And you were just like, man, it's kind of weird having you be the teacher and me be the student.
Right.
And it was just kind of like, wow, like Eugene's trusting me. It's like, oh, and it brought a new ownership for me of like, oh, I have a part to play, and not just I'm gonna sit here and Eugene's gonna put spiritual food in my plate and I'm gonna eat it up. Like, this is something where I need to put effort into it as well. And I think it made me realize, like, you know, I need to be challenging and helping Eugene grow in areas where he was struggling. Not that I could help that much. I was a hot mess express in college, but it made me realize it's like, no, this is a two-way street. God is so generous, and
Mhm.
it's not like he's gonna, oh, there's only one reason why you're here.
Yeah.
He's gonna attack, he's gonna heal multiple things, and he's gonna fix multiple things through one relationship. And that was something that made me realize, oh, okay. And I've taken that with most of my friendships going forward of,
Mhm.
okay, they're helping me, but where's God calling me to help them? Where's God calling me to challenge them, to
Yes.
heal them, to help them grow?
Yeah, and I think what's important for that is that openness to vulnerability.
Mm,
Like, you
mm.
have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. Like, you can't gain that trust unless you're open to it.
Yeah.
And so I think that one, I think the biggest barrier to like deepening your friendships is your own willingness to actually be open, right?
Mm.
Like, we have, and that's not. I say that like it's easy, right? We have a
Mm.
lot of wounds. We have a lot of walls that we put up, and we have to be open to like putting down those walls for somebody, for that friendship to actually grow. There's actually a book that my wife and I read. It's called How We Love. It's by a Christian couple. Hope maybe Kelly's in the chat can put the name of the title or the author. I think it's like, I want to say it's like Yerkovic or something like that, something along those lines. But it's a husband and wife. They're Christian, and it's similar to Myers Briggs, where it's kind of like how your past relationships, like friendships, family, like all these different relationships, have kind of wounded you
Yeah.
and cause you to fall into these patterns. And a lot of, yeah, there you go. Kay and Milan Yurkovic. Uh, and yeah, they talk about how these different wounds affect us and affect our ability to love.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it was interesting because when you were going through that, it was like I had to talk through with my wife a lot of like different wounds that I have, how they affect me, and it's like it's helped our relationship grow because a lot of times like, and the thing like actually my wife and I, Kelly and I, are actually like the most like incompatible of the two, like the two that like that are the most difficult to work together with. Like because to basically sum it up, it's like when there's a disagreement, when we get angry, uh yeah, I'll just say it, Kelly likes to kind of close in, and then I like to run. So
Great combo.
that's why it's the most difficult, because both people want the other person to
Yep. To
Like-
do the work.
to overcome that and like go to them. So like, yeah, so it's difficult. It's like
Yeah.
it's like person running me. It's like I want you to chase after me and go after me, but then the other person's like, well, I want you to stop running and come.
I
And
think
it's just like, yeah, it's just it's so difficult. But yeah, there's that openness when we kind of open up those wounds that cause those to kind of grow in that. I still don't think we're perfect at it, but it's a growing thing. And the same thing with friendship. Like, you have to be open to that hurt, open to, yeah, allowing the friendship to grow.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think, if we're following that vein of like, that intimate, those virtue friendships are that line of where it hurts. Just thinking of like having disagreements with like my roommates, my past teammates. And it's just like when I was at UConn, it was really beautiful because my teammates, I think we had every single team meeting, someone would cry. And it's not because I like, someone would roast them and they'd be super sensitive. It was just because, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is my heart. I'm going to share it with you. And it was just so beautiful because I think a lot of people have that tendency to run, to close off, to not have the desire and the fortitude to kind of push through and talk through. And I think that's a thing that our culture might be losing, is that this is tough, I want to avoid it. And we're losing, that's where we're heading. And instead it's like, no, we need to talk this out. We need to be mature adults and discuss this and be like, well, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm perceiving. And I think that communication plays in friendships a lot, because it's like, okay, like, is our friendship worth, going through that hurt, going through those difficult moments?
Yeah. And I think, I guess it kind of gets down to like friendship, like authentic friendships and those intimate friendships, is suffering together.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that, like, obviously the disciples had to do. The apostles had to suffer together. And that's, wasn't there a word that means to suffer with? What? There's compassion? Empathy.
Sympathy is I feel bad for your situation. Empathy is I know the situation that you've been through. And
and it's kind of like I suffer with you, right?
Yes,
I think it's like the root.
There's a video
actually.
with like sympathy. There's someone down a hole, and then someone pops their head and be like, "Oh, I feel bad for you." And the empathy is like someone gets a ladder and walks down and sits with them, and in where they are, and meet them where they're at.
Actually, that reminds me of a joke that Kelly and I saw. Kelly found online and shared with me. It was comparing the difference between people in the West Coast and people in the East Coast. And the example they gave is when you're tired.
Yes,
you have a
I've seen this.
tire. Yeah, it's like people in the West Coast are like, oh man, like it's like, oh, that sucks, and do nothing to help you, but they feel so bad for you. It's like, oh man, that's terrible. I hate that happened to you, man. And then the East Coast, like, what is wrong with you idiot?
Yeah.
But they'll go in and change a tire for you.
It's like, don't you know how to change it? Get out of the way. Let me do this for you. And then they, go and do it for you. And it's just like, I think it's that idea of like, East Coast is kind but not nice, and West Coast is nice but not kind.
Yeah, exactly. Get right, California. No, but going back to what I was saying, like, compassion. My wife points out is the word, like, to suffer with, and that is the foundation, I think, of an intimate relationship. So you suffer with, like when you're like, think about your closest friends, right? When they're going through something, like whatever it is, and you're like listening. You're not just like sitting there going, oh man, it sucks. It's like you're actually like, oh, like you're feeling what they're feeling. If they're crying, you're crying in a certain, to a certain extent, right? Like you mourn with them, whatever loss, whatever they're going through, like you suffer with them.
Yes. It makes me think of, and this is something that I learned, that like my friendships teach me about my relationship with God, and then my relationship with God teaches me about my relationship with my friends. And so it's just like, oh, I can learn how to work through stuff with God based on how I'm learning to work through stuff with my friends. And then I learn how to treat my friends and how to be in a relationship with them through how God is pursuing me in that friendship. And it's like, okay, I need to be like God to my friends, not be God, but love them as best I can. Going back to the imitate me, imitating Christ. But
I am God, I command you.
Yes. Oh gosh, struggle of my life. But it was just so beautiful. It was like, oh, these things are, and I think that's the beauty and the importance of these virtuous, these intimate friendships, because there's fruit that you can apply to your faith and your spiritual life, your prayer life, your intimacy with God, and vice versa. And it's actually helped me break a lot of barriers, a lot of walls where I couldn't, like, I was like, wow, God's being very merciful, very compassionate to me. I'm being super hard on my friends. I'm that guy's like, who has something that they can't see. I want to chisel it off them, and I'm like, I don't have that compassion, that charity, that love that accompanies honesty and vulnerability, and vice versa. how to be vulnerable with my friends. I'm learning how to do
Yeah.
that. And so it's beautiful how they help each other out.
Yeah, and I think it's biblical, right? It says we love because he first loved. The extent that we have the capacity to love is dependent on like how much love we have allowed ourselves to receive from God.
Yep.
The relationship we form with God is going to be reflected in the relationships we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and even like in marriage, I use marriage as an example, obviously, because it's relatable to me. But it says that like husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church, and like that, like you have to have that relationship with Christ. Like if you don't know what love is, you can't give love, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you have to know Jesus to really have that depth and the depth to your friendship. And I think that brings me to an important question, which is how do we see the friendships of people outside of the church, right? Can people outside of the church have authentic friendship?
Dang.
Because we're phrasing it in that context, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's yeah. Like we know that true friendship is based on the virtues, right, and based in ultimately rooted in Christ to have a true friendship. But what if somebody's outside of the church?
Man, I mean, I'm no theologian, but I feel like, it's like they might have those intentions and that desires and that like maybe authenticity and that genuine, I care about this person. But it might be like a misguided of like, oh, there's only so far I can go with this person or so far I can take this person. And, yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because it like to. Oh, I hate that I'm borrowing this. Man, maybe I won't. I won't do it. I won't do it. I was gonna borrow a phrase from like a secular thing, but we won't do it. It's not good. It's not good. Not good enough. But no, I think that love is fairly universal, right? There, people can have love, but it can be misguided,
Yeah.
and not rooted in the right thing, right? Like it's the same thing. I think it's very similar to kind of how talk about other religions, like have elements of truth, but only in the Catholic Church do we have the fullness of truth.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think I would say it's similar concept, right? Like they have elements of love, elements of friendship,
maybe levels where they
Yeah.
could get to.
Yeah, I mean, there's elements of it, right? Like, for example, what am I thinking of? Like, wow, why am I why can't I pull a virtue out of my butt? Like, just one virtue. Courage? No.
Yes.
Yeah, courage is virtue.
Courage is
Yeah.
virtue.
Yeah, courage. Yeah, I'm terrible with key terms. I probably say that multiple times. I'm terrible with key terms. Courage. Like, you can, outside of the church, you can teach somebody courage, right? In this very small way. Like, even a father teaching a son how to ride a bike, right? To overcome fear. It's like, yeah, you can teach that a little bit as an element of truth, right? That's still ultimately courage. But it's a smaller, lesser form of like maybe some other type of courage, right?
I feel like analogy would be like, working construction. It's like when you have a new guy that comes onto the job site and, they have all these new flashy tools, these gizmos, these gadgets. It's like they might have all these tools, but they're not going to be able to really build much. Where it's like my boss who's been in construction for 25 years, he has all these basic tools and, he can do anything because he has that knowledge, that experience. And I feel like that kind of applies with our faith of like, they still have access to those tools, but they don't really know the purpose of those tools. So it's like they could, hit a nail, with a hammer, they can do these things, but what are they building towards? What are they, and so that's why it's like they might have these things that are partially assembled, but they don't have the know-how and the understanding of what's the bigger picture, what's the ultimate goal here.
Right. Yeah, I think yeah, a good example is like I could build a table. I could build a table.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
You give me a piece of wood and 4 legs. That's a table. Is it a good table? Probably not as good as somebody who does it professionally.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like an actual carpenter can build a freaking nice table. Like
Yeah.
it'll be amazing. It'll be sturdy. It'll be level, perfectly level. There's like so many elements to it. It's like, yeah, I still built a table.
Yeah, yep. It's like I was renovating my parents', kitchen, and I was like, okay, listen, here are the things I cannot do. I can go get the tools. I've seen them how to do it, but I do not know. I don't have that knowledge, that expertise, and it's like, I'm not going to be an electrician and decide to turn myself into Pikachu one day. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So I think ultimately it is possible to have an authentic friendship outside of the church, but it's not as good.
Yeah, it's not, I don't think it's as filling either. I think they might put that virtue on a pedestal, or they might put certain things on a pedestal, and then it's ultimately going to let you down.
Yeah.
Or they might not have the prudence to, I should only share with intimate friends. I'm going to share my whole life with everybody, and that's going to come back, and there's going to be people who are going to take advantage of it, and
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Like, I just don't think that you can desire the best for somebody if you don't know what the best is. Which, for us as Christians, understand that it's Christ, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that is the ultimate good. And I think you can wish the best for somebody, but without having that full vision of it, you can only get so far.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like I don't wish for my friends to be just happy.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I wish for them to be joyful,
Yeah.
to have joy, but I mean, some cases, I do wish friends to be happy. But that's not my priority. My priority is joy, which is greater, right?
Yes.
A fulfilling happiness.
Something that's gonna last longer than the situation.
Yeah.
The mood you're in.
Yeah, and I think that, like, to some extent, right, happiness does show us of joy, right? Like,
Yeah.
I am happy drinking this delicious bourbon.
Yes.
But it's not as good as, like Jesus, like heaven.
Yeah.
The wine we'll have in heaven is going to be much better than any of this bourbon. But like, that's the same thing. Or it's like, I can wish for happiness for people, or I can strive for joy. And that's not always equivalent. And in some cases it's good, but, and I think that is a lot of the problems that we see in friendships these days, right? Like, there's just, like, how can you have good friendships if you don't know what wishing the best for them is, because you don't know what the best is. And
and I think it comes to thinking of, like, okay, how do we, in terms of evangelization, like, like, I think for, like, when I was a missionary, it was, there's a quote, and it's probably my favorite. In Focus, they talk about the why. So what's the why? Why do you do this? What's your reason, your purpose? And I think it's there's a passage in John where it's like, I speak this in the world so they may share in my joy completely. And so for me, it was always like, wow, I see my fellow campus, my fellow UVM students struggling on campus, and I've received this joy, this happiness, this fulfillment, this authentic friendship, this relationship with God. Who am I to withhold that from them?
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful because it's like, one of the great gifts is they do have access to those tools. And so you can use those tools to build friendships and invite them into the faith, and their building blocks that you can utilize. And I think, in terms of evangelizations, like, like when I got to my campus, and they'd be like, oh, well, we're just forced friends. Like, you don't actually care about us. Like, I'm just a number. I'm just a student. I'm just a, look good for your hire. Like, no, like, I didn't come here, to do a good job. Like, I came here because when I was being hired, I was like, there's a Nick Maille on a campus that God has given me the gifts and tools, and the Holy Spirit's going to lead me into bringing him into that, and helping him realize that love and fulfillment that God gives him. And so it's just like, I care, like, I don't know you yet, and I presume that this is how you might have felt about me, hopefully, but it's...
I'll drink for that.
But it's just like, I care so much about this person that I don't know yet. I will develop that relationship with him.
Yeah.
But this is enough for me to want to go out and pursue them and to challenge them and to build something, create something with them. And I think that's something that we can take, out into the world to evangelize with, and a tool to use friendship as a tool of evangelization.
Yeah, and I think that does open, that opens you up to suffering and hurt as well. Like I cannot. Oh, I can name like a handful of people that I've poured my heart into. It's like, oh gosh, I just want this person to know Jesus.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they say no to the gospel. It's like, and it's gut wrenching, right?
Yeah.
Like, part of it is like, obviously it's like, oh, I put in all this work and failure, but then also it's just that heart of it of like, I wanted to give this person the best thing.
Yeah.
And
The greatest gift I know.
Yeah, the greatest gift, the greatest thing I've received. Like, I want you to have it too. And they walked away from it. And that's like opening yourself up to like suffering, to pain. Yeah. And it's real. Like could you imagine? Like, even I think about the young rich man in the Bible, right? Like, Jesus offered him, like, sell all your things, come follow me. It was offering him something huge. It was offering him discipleship, essentially. And he's like, oh, I have too many things, and walks away. It's sad. It's like, I think a lot of times I focus on that, like, he left sad. Sucks for you, but we forget about, like, in a real way, that probably hurt Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. It's me and my roommate, we've been watching The Chosen. And I've been catching up. We've finally watched the first 2 seasons. And it's beautiful. It's brought a lot of fruit to my prayer. But there's a scene with Nicodemus, and whether or not it's accurate, it's but I love the imagery of Jesus inviting Nicodemus to be one of his followers. And then he's like hiding behind the corner. He left the bag of money. Sorry, spoilers.
What?
Oh my gosh. But I guess that's your fault for not watching The Chosen. You should watch it. We're not sponsored by them, but watch it. But it's literally like Nicodemus is having this gut-wrenching thing hiding behind the wall because he has all this, his life. He's old. He has a wife. He has all these things that he wants to do. This pride of being the teacher of Israel. And Jesus is like, oh, you were so close. And it was just kind of like, dang, that hurts. And it just like you were saying, it's like you'll find students or, people in your lives who are just like, you invest in them, you work with them, you build these friendships. And then it's just they say no. And it's just like, oh.
Yeah.
It's heavy. It hits me really hard. It sucks.
Yeah. And yeah, I think, and it's kind of, I don't even know. Yeah, it's one of those things where you can only do so much, right? And it's like it's almost like a sadness to you just know that friendship is not going any further.
The hope that I have is that being a woodsman from Vermont, I love, I'm a pyromaniac. I love fire. I love, building fires. A lot of my analogies include fire, so I gotta have one here.
Lit.
Lit for the Lord. But it's, like, people are like bonfires, and people who have not encountered Christ are like people who have been, who have a fire being built, like have the logs being stored, but the fire's not lit. And I hope, like, especially as a missionary on campus, you're there for a year, so like, you can work with students, but like you might not get to the point where they encounter Christ, or they might accept him, or might not really allow him into their heart. But it was always that hope that, okay, I'm putting all these logs, I'm building up this massive fire, putting all these massive trees. There's a video on Instagram that my friend showed me, and it's just like guys trying to overcompensate, and like these women are having a nice bonfire, and all their boyfriends are out in the woods, and they're chopping down these trees, these massive logs, and just throwing them on this fire. And I'm just like, yeah, that's me. I'm throwing all these big logs. I might not be the one to light the match, but I'm hoping that someone down the road, God has put someone in their life, and I was like, I might not be that person. And I think that's the hope that I have, as much as it is disappointing and sad. There's that hope, is like, even though I might not have lit the fire, I'm, helping it. I'm, building it for the future.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'd say, yeah, like building foundations for that. That's part of the process of friendship too. Is just like building the process, like building a foundation, like over time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like when I think about like authentic friendship, there's a passage, Ecclesiastes. I had such a hard time trying to find it in my Bible earlier, and it's just like,
Because we're Catholic, we don't read the Bible.
Yeah, we wrote it. We don't need to read it. But Ecclesiastes. When I was at UConn, we had a man cave in our basement, and there was like a Band of Brothers and Baxter Company, because that was the house that we lived in, and so there's just like, our men's group, and it had this passage, Ecclesiastes, and so it says, two are better than one, because they have good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two live together, they are warm. But how can one be warm alone? And though one man might prevail against one who is alone, two will withstand him, and a three-ply cord is not easily broken. And it just speaks to the strength of friendships. And I think, that's something that I always look forward to. And it really beautifully, when you look at the saints, saints, there's a saying, saints come in pairs or clusters, if they're, and it's always just like, man, I want to find that cluster of saints, those pairs that I can be like, these are the people that I'm going to run to heaven with.
Yeah.
And I think it's just beautiful, because it's like, yeah, these are the people that are going to shelter me, through the tough times, who are like, when you send a text, hey guys, I'm struggling, hey guys, so-and-so's in the hospital. I'm really doubting this. I'm, not doing well. Those are people like, hey, come over to my house. Let's hang out. Hey, call me. Hey, like, who are those people who are going to pull you up when you fall down? Who are those people who are going to, defend you when you're under attack?
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah. And I think it speaks into the importance of friendship. I think that's another thing that's important. Like, I think it's, we're looking at like, oh yeah, here's definitions of friendship, things like that. But the other thing to keep in mind, like you mentioned, like they talk about, is the why. Like, why friendship?
Yeah.
Like, why do we need it? Like, why? And I think that's part of it, right? Like, we were not made to, like, be an island. Like, man was not made to be an island. And we do need those friendships to get us through tough times, to get us through heaven. And it is like we talked about, it's like Trinitarian. Like, friendship should be Trinitarian in nature, and that's like we were made for relationship. Say, like, we were made in God's image, and God is three persons, like, in communion, in relationship. So we are made the same way. Like, we are made for relationship.
Yeah.
So friendship is that important.
Go ahead.
And I was gonna say, and I think what you said is important too. Like, who are, like, I think, who are those people that you run to? Like, I just think back to, like, when my dad had a stroke. Like, you, Isaac, Tony, Eli.
We have a group chat.
Like, I immediately went to my phone, and it's like I couldn't do anything about it. Obviously, my dad had a stroke. I just had to go, like, pray through it, and I wasn't about to do it by myself. I reached out to those people that are, like, closest to me, and it's like, hey, like, I need prayers right now. My dad needs prayers right now. Like, and that's just opening it up to, like, vulnerability. It's like, hey, like, this terrible thing is happening with me right now, and I need your help.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy too, because you think about it, like, God wants all of us in heaven, and you just think about, like, when you get up to heaven, God's like, okay, who are you? Who did you bring with you? And it's just like, oh, well, I didn't really think about it. I just brought myself. I thought my goal was to get me to heaven, and it's like, you look at marriage, like, your goal, your vocation is to get Kelly to heaven.
Yeah.
And, like, her goal is to get you to heaven, and it's just beautiful because You know, like that's what we're called to do. We're called to bring people with us to heaven, because we want to have, you know, a lit party up there. And yeah, it's there's that same poem that, you know, talked about how, well, it's, I guess it's a different poem, but it was just like, we've been convinced, I feel so often, that especially in the Northeast, you know, growing, we're not, you don't share your faith, you don't talk about your faith, it's not polite, it's not, you know, it's not good manners. But it's just like, you know, we've been convinced that faith is just enough, you know, to have stored up inside of us, not hurting anybody. Talk about being vulnerable, willing to, you know, be vulnerable, willing to be honest, you know, challenging other people. It's like, no, like, our faith, we need to share it with others, and you know, it needs to be an authentic. We can't just be like, oh yeah, you should go to heaven and then walk away. It's like, is that going to be effective?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, it's different, like telling somebody like, oh, you should go to heaven versus like walking them to heaven.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. Leading
Like,
the path is like, hey, I'm an expert trail guide. Like, let me, like, try, like, being a snowboarder, be like, hey, like, there's this really cool trail we should check out. And be like, oh, it's over there. Have fun. It's like, no. It's like, let me show you the ropes. There's this tree. Oh yeah, there's a cliff there. Like, watch out for that.
yeah. Yeah. And I think like even, yeah, a good example is on my mission trip to Japan. There was this little bakery that I came across while I was just kind of wandering around, and they had this amazing peach bread. It's this bread. They like, I don't know how they did it. It was like it was baked, and then it like dyed in the dough a certain way that the outside actually looked like the colors of a peach. You know, it's got like the pinks and the like the browns.
That's
and
awesome.
had like all those different hues mixed into it. Not just that, it was shaped like a peach. After they baked it, it was
that
shaped
is
like
awesome.
a peach. Not like perfectly round, but like if you look at the top, it's like rounded, right? Had the colors of a peach, looked like a peach, and he bit into it. It had this like cream filling
Stop.
with little chunks of peaches, little chunks of peaches in it,
Oh,
and it just tasted
Where's
like
this
a peach.
bakery?
It's in Japan, so you're never gonna have it.
well, I just sold all my things. I'm going to Japan, guys. See ya.
But I like found it one day, and I tried it. And I fell in love with that bread. I had it every day. It was on the college campus. So actually, if you want to look for it, I don't know if the bakery's still going to be there, but it's on Waseda campus in Japan. A little bakery there. And yeah, I got peach bread every time we went to campus. Every time. I would, without fail. To the point that like I got to know the workers. And my last day on campus, I actually went to that bakery, and I like bought peach bread, and I was like lamenting over the fact. I was like telling them, I was like, this is the last time I'm gonna have this. And they're like, what? Why? It's like, I'm going back to America. And they were like so sad that I was like not coming back. Yeah, I was like, I made friends with these people.
Like, the heartbreak.
Yeah, they're
Ripping
like,
that Band-Aid off.
yeah, it's like, oh no. They're so sad. But here's the thing, the point that I was gonna make is with my team, my mission team, of course I told them about this peach bread, right? But I didn't go and be like, yo, I found this peach bread. Like, you need to go try it. It's over there.
Yeah.
No, I went like the first day I bought it, tried it. I was like, this is amazing. I bought more of them. And I brought it back to the team. And I was like, I found this amazing peach bread.
Yeah, yeah.
And like gave everybody a piece. And I was like, try it. Yeah.
I think the beauty with that story too is it's beautiful with like how we share faith, because it's like we receive faith and then we go and share those little nuggets with other people, but then it's not like you were the baker. It's not like, oh, I know how to make this, I know how to do this, I need to bring you to the bakery so you can get it yourself. And I think that's like with our faith, it's like, you know, we give people these spiritual nuggets, these little nuggets of faith, and it's like, okay, I don't know actually how to fulfill you as God does. Yeah. I need to bring you to him so he can heal you. He can provide you that mercy, and he can show you what authentic true love is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like it that also like explains kind of like our friendship growth, right? Like I think that just us naturally, like I don't think our friendship would be to the extent that it is now.
Yeah.
But the thing that we did like together is that we prayed together. We went mass together, right? We went to Christ together, and like we talked about earlier, it's like we love because he first loved.
Yes. Yeah.
And so us going to Christ together, like we're gaining that capacity to love, and is oriented towards each other, right? Like our friendship grew because we were growing in relationship with Christ. Like, yeah, like we said, like it's only to the, like a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right? And that's like, that's the beauty of discipleship, beauty of our friendship, is that we were both striving for Christ. So it's like we were both kind of growing, we're helping each other grow, but it's not dependent on one another, right? It was always dependent on Christ.
Yes, yeah. I felt like we had that mediator, because like it got to the point where it's like, I need to pray for Eugene and like how I can receive and like what is my role, and I started being aware of these things, and then it was like a snowball effect of like, oh, okay, boom, 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 and it's just like, oh, I care about him more. I want to spend more time with him, and like I remember my senior year, Bible study was really hard. I had long days. It was just like, I kind of probably was, I know I was very full of myself. and I was just like, I remember I was like, man, I'm yawning a lot. That's really disrespectful to Eugene. I need to make a stronger effort of A, showing up on time, B, not yawning, getting enough like sleep or rest, or make sure I had coffee or something, so that like I can be present, because Eugene spent a lot of time preparing this. Like, he cares about me. He wants me to grow. He wants me to do these things, and he wants me to grow and shine. And so it's just like, oh wow, I need to step up my game, because and there's that level of respect that I was not showing, and I needed, and it was only revealed in prayer to me, those things, and it's just beautiful that like, because we're going to Christ, more things were revealed, and our friendship got deeper and stronger, and it's just like, yeah, I never would have realized that without that.
Yeah, and it's the same thing we like learn with our relationship with Christ. It's
yes.
Like that was one of the things that like in like holy hours, right? We had my team always had holy hour in the morning. So many times I fell asleep, right?
I'm just thinking of the time that Joe ran, like he just gave up. The team director, he just like laid down in the pew, and
it wasn't even on the pew; it was under the pew. He laid down on the floor under the pew,
and there's just a pool of drool afterwards because his mouth is open.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Good.
I actually have a picture of that of him laying down under the pew, and I remember I was like, Joe, did you fall asleep? He's like, yeah, I just gave up. I was like, I was just too tired. Like I knew I was gonna keep fighting, and yeah, there's actually a quote from Saint Therese of Lisieux. It's like, a father loves his daughter just as much as when she's awake as when she's asleep. And he used that a lot in justification for my holy hours. I was like, I'm falling asleep. Jesus still loves me. It's fine. It's still a good holy hour. Rather than, like you said, like, actually maybe I should just try to get enough sleep and be rested, and therefore have a good holy hour.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like I always thought my justification was, well, Peter, James, and John, they like, you know, had intimacy with Jesus way more than I could ever have, and they fell asleep, so they kind of instituted the first holy nap, so I'm just following in their footsteps, you know, imitate me imitating Christ, you know, that's what I'm going to try to do.
Yeah, pretty sure Jesus called him out for that.
Yeah, I mean, he calls me out.
It's like, you fools, like, what are you doing? You couldn't just stay awake for an hour?
Jesus, I was too busy binge watching last night TV show.
Yeah. But yeah, there was one point, one thing that I wanted to ask, and I think it's relevant, and maybe I'll lose some friendships over this. Ooh. But do you think that you can have authentic friendship with people online? I did a poll on Twitter. A lot of people said yes. I think there was one person who said no.
Oof.
But yeah, the question is that, can you have authentic friendship with people just online? People that you only met online. And there's a lot of those people that maybe in the chat now, or maybe watching this now, that I only know online.
I think I've only met Kelly online before. I've never met her before, you know. Not just, I would say yes. Yeah. I would say yes, because I don't know why I would say yes. I would just say yes. I had a line, but I just feel like, yeah, you can have authentic friendships online. I guess I would envision like phone calls being included, like I guess a digital relationship.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you want to get as technical as like, are you including Zoom or FaceTime or that kind of stuff. I
Yeah,
just
I
feel
think you
like,
can include those things, but it's
yeah,
like you've never met physically. You've
um,
never been in the same room.
yeah, it's definitely going to be much more difficult. Talking about like long distance relationships are definitely a lot harder than, in person relationships. And I feel like there is an aspect where it's just like, oh, I care about this person so much.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make a effort to see them or, go visit them or spend time. And, like situations are different, but I just feel like that you can to a point. Yeah, that's what I would say. I don't know if I want to say more or not. Look like a fool. I mean, I do a pretty good job. I would say like that might be my actual job is Nick being a fool.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What's your thoughts?
I think you can, but I do think it's limited.
Mm.
It's what one of my friends, actually an online friend, Mark, or some people know as Joyful. He says is that like, yeah, we are as humans, we are mind, body, spirit, right? Yeah, you can pray together, be in communion in that regard, communion in the same same mass, like not like physically, location wise, but the mass is the same throughout all masses, even those with liturgical abuses. It's a whole different topic.
Oof.
But like, yeah, you share that communion in Christ. You can share in experiences, right, online. Like you can still have intimate conversations. You can still suffer together. You can still desire the best for somebody, even if they're not physically there. But like, yeah, like we are mind, body, and spirit, mind, spirit, and body. And so there is a different intimacy, like a physically being with somebody,
Yeah.
and spending time, right?
There are two things that popped into my mind just hearing you speak. One was just like pen pals, like pre-digital age. You had pen pals, and I'm just thinking, yeah, my mom and her pen pal, like, they like wrote letters and wrote letters and wrote letters, and it was probably like 10, 15 years until like they actually met, and like. I'd say that they had a really good friendship, a close or maybe an authentic friendship. And I can't speak into how deep, but from the outside, that's exactly what it looked like. And even from like with Focus, there are some campuses that don't have, Focus doesn't have enough missionaries or whatever the circumstances are. They can't bring missionaries to that campus, and so they actually have like digital campus.
Digital campus, yeah.
And so, it's a Zoom or Skype or phone call, and you have missionaries who are, at the Denver Sports Center, and they meet weekly, daily. I don't know exactly how it is, but they don't meet in person. They're students that they're working with, that they're trying to share the gospel with, and I would hope, and I would like to think that there are really good, authentic friendships that were developed and built through digital campus. And so yeah, I'm being a lot more confidence in my answer. But yeah, I definitely think you can. I definitely think there's a limit. The limit to it.
Yeah, the physical is important. I think that like the example you gave of like long distance relationships, right? There are people who like meet their significant other online, right? And that's where it starts. They just talk online. And then eventually, like, just go deeper into conversation. They have very in-depth conversations. Start calling. They start, FaceTiming. Whatever it may be. But they don't get married over Zoom. They eventually meet in person, right? And that's the desire.
Yes.
So there's like almost a desire in that, and it's the same thing I think with Jesus, right? We have a long distance relationship with God, right, for a long time until, obviously the Holy Spirit dwells in us, right?
Yeah. I would also say when we receive Jesus at Mass.
There you go. That's the thing, right? That's that's important. Sacrament, like it's in the precepts of the church that we receive Jesus at least once a year in the Eucharist, because it's not just about showing up and being there and praying and all that stuff. It's physical intimacy.
Yeah.
and yeah, we receive Jesus in the Eucharist, and we do it as often as we can to reach sainthood, right? Because
Yeah.
that's important, and I think that does speak into like our friendships, right? Like, physical is a goal. It was actually one of my online friends said, she's like, you almost did she use the word consummate? You almost consummate a friendship, like when you eventually meet in person. Right?
Yes. Yeah. That's yeah.
Yeah, and it's like yeah, even like you said with your mom's pen pal, right? They eventually met.
Yes.
15 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's like yeah, that's a thing, right? It's like eventually you have to meet. It's a different experience to actually.
And I feel like too, like with long distance friends, like friends move, like especially after college, it's just like their friends. It's just like, dang, like they moved all the way out there, and it's like, you know what? I'm gonna make that effort. We gotta go visit. Like we have a friend Tony, that moved to Colorado, and like we were just sitting there, and it's kind of funny. His mom was like, "You gotta go visit my son. You gotta go see him in Colorado. You gotta go visit him." And we're like, "Yeah, we do." Like like
Yeah.
like so. Tony was my disciple, and so it's just like yeah, like we want it, and so there's a group of us that took the time and effort to go spend, and because like we would talk to him on the phone, but it was just like it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
It's good, like we can definitely go deep, we can definitely share. It's like but it's different than like being able to hug somebody, to give a good big bear hug, and just or to share drinks even in the same room with somebody, or yeah, it's something different.
I think it's like the example I'd say is like it's different to say, like, over text or even through a phone call, like, oh man, like I suffer with you. Like if like they had like a bad day, like, oh man, I'm sorry, like I feel for you. Like there's only so many things you could say in words versus just actually like giving them a hug.
Yeah.
It's very different. It's like almost the same message, but one I think is more powerful depending on the person if they like hugs. But like yeah, there is a difference, right? Of just like the physical, like
if you look to the Gospels, there's the image of like Jesus, and like he's friends with Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And when he dies, like he hears the news and he doesn't go to right away. But it's not like Jesus doesn't go. Right. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna sit here and think about him, or he eventually goes and he weeps and he is in person, and he goes there, and he revives Lazarus, and I think there's a lot to be said of the woman at the well. Jesus could have appeared to her, or could have said something, could have instilled something in her heart, but he goes the physical distance to speak to her in the heat of the day, to reveal to her himself to her personally. And I think too that speaks to strength. Like we always talk about in ministry, like personal invitation is always your strongest invitation,
right?
So it's like, yeah, you could shoot a text, you could say this, you could do that, but it's like if you go up to a person and invite them personally, that's gonna resonate with them, it's gonna sit with them, it's gonna be with them a lot more, and it's gonna be a lot stronger than any digital or half-hearted invite.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about like the year of dating, the first year of dating with Kelly, like she was in Philly, I was still in Vermont. It was like texted all like pretty regularly. We Skyped like once a week, and I visited like once a month.
Yeah.
Like of all those things, what do you think I appreciated the most? Visiting her once a month. Like, yeah, and it was like one of the things that year was actually pretty good, because it was like, I kind of realized long before you even started dating that I was gonna marry her, but that's another story. But that year of not being with her was like, I was like, I don't want to not be with her. So I was like, I'm gonna marry her.
Yeah.
If I marry her, she's
I'm gonna lock this down.
She's stuck with me.
You can't run away from me anymore.
She's stuck with me wherever I go. Boom, done. And like that, yeah. There's that desire for like that permanence and that physicality of just like being there. But then there's like, yeah, for example, like even our friendship, like you live in Vermont, I live in New Hampshire for a while, I live in California. Obviously, like we don't meet regularly, in the same way that you can hang out with Eli and
Yeah.
the guys there in Vermont, Isaac, and then, but like the desire is like, hey, when are we gonna get together?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's like that intention was like, oh yeah, I gotta go trip to hang out with Kelly and Eugene. Or it's just like
Yeah.
like when we see each other at weddings or like other events, it's just like I can spend time talking with the guys. I can see them whenever. Like I'm gonna spend time with Kelly and Eugene. I'm
Yeah.
gonna sit down and it's like, I'm gonna have a one-on-one with them. It's like I actually look forward to that at weddings or something. It's maybe I need to come down and visit more often. But it's
Yeah.
just like, no, these are the people that I'm excited for because like I'm excited for the couples that are getting married, and the reflection of God's love that they share, but
Right.
and the sacrament being celebrated. But I also am excited about reconnecting with old friends
Yeah.
and building those things.
Yeah. So in short, yes, you can have authentic friendship online, but
yes.
physical better. Like I just
I mean,
you can't share everything
Yeah.
over Skype.
it's funny. I'm in terms of love language, physical touch is it's just through the roof.
Yeah,
So
it's probably a more important thing. Yeah.
And so for me, it's just like, duh. But then it's
Yeah.
just like, I also know people, it's just like, don't touch me.
Yeah. So yeah, not to lessen. I think that's the thing that like some people might think is not, it's lessening or cheapening like online friendship. But,
No, you
It's
definitely
not.
can still have fruitful and
Yeah.
authentic friendships.
yeah, just the same way that Latin Mass is better than Novus Ordo. Both are good.
Oh.
Both are good, but one is better. Just kidding.
No.
Just triggered everybody.
Yeah, taking shots.
But yeah, you can. I mean, it's the same thing. Like some people can say, like one way of praying is holier than another.
Yeah, it makes me think of like you can go to sporting events, or like if you think about like watching games on TV versus going to sporting events. There's an atmosphere, there's a vibe, I hate using that word vibe, but there's something there, or like going to a concert. Like there's something more personal there than doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like listening to like I said, like listening to a song recorded versus being concert. It being performed.
Yeah.
It's like you're sharing an experience. It's like a unique experience, right?
Yes. Yeah. A bond that's being built,
Yeah.
which you could still have through fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of everything I want to talk about. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk till the cows come home, but they're already in the barn at this time.
True. We stayed up till 1 a.m. talking last night. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some of like the best things. Like I remember most about like time in focus, it was just so many people like just staying up so late, like even training.
Yeah, at
which
training.
is probably not that prudent.
You're just out in the breezeway till people playing guitar, catching up, and you're just trying to soak it all in.
I think that's another good example. Like I had a lot of friends at Focus, right? They weren't necessarily on my campus. Well, yeah, they weren't on my campus because they're missionaries on a different campus. And then even Focus acknowledged the importance of regional gatherings, like people to get together in person.
Yeah.
Like gatherings, even at Seek, right? Like the big conference, like we know everybody's there.
Yeah.
But we had all staff meetings. We had small regional gatherings here and there. There was like the importance of being community. Actually, like we could even go back to the apostles, right? They would go off in mission. They would go to the different parts of the world.
Come back.
But they found the important. They knew the importance of coming together. Like, could you imagine how excited those like reunions were? Like,
Well, yeah.
well, except when Peter and Paul were like,
Paul's like, I
going back
denied
and
him to
forth.
his face. Love that passage.
yeah,
But no, yeah, and that was one of the things that I loved about being in the Northeast, because we had probably like 12, 15 schools within like a 4 or 5 hour driving range, and it would be like we would have our own, like we would be like, okay, yeah, the Boston house is having a big party, and we would get schools. Or we did a Men of Virtue retreat, and we had like 8 campuses, and it was just so cool because we got to witness our brothers in Christ, exercise, not their craft, and seeing them in action, and just seeing
Yeah.
the beauty and the love, and it's cool because our students, I know my students were like, whoa.
Yeah.
I love hanging out with other missionaries because like they could tell there's a difference between the relationships we had with our, people who got it, people who understood it, the, missionaries, and then people on their campus, the friends that didn't know Christ. And there's just so much beauty in that. And I just really appreciated being able to like see a lot of missionaries frequently, because campus can be a lonely, lonely place.
Yeah. So I stress the importance of like team life. But yeah, no, I think that, I think, I mean, the only thing I want to say is like, I think friendships are important because they have lasting impacts on us, and
They do.
and ultimately, either lead us or pull us away from God, one way or another. And so I think in that regard, I don't think necessarily that like, I want to be clear. I don't think discipleship is like the only way to have friendship.
No.
I do. You can have like friendship more kind of like equally, I guess you could say, where it's just like we're just helping each other get to heaven. Like one person is not the leader of the other, which I think is where our friendship has kind of developed, right? I'm not your discipler.
Yeah, it was just funny. I was thinking in college is like my disciples are definitely had as good, if not better, prayer lives than me. So I was just like, that was always the case.
Yeah, that was me and Robert. Father Robert now.
Yes, Father Bobby Moe.
That was the funniest thing I remember meeting. We were talking about yesterday. We'd like meet for discipleship, and I'm just like, oh yeah, how's prayer? It's like, oh man, it's really rough. I only prayed 4 rosaries yesterday. And I was like, as a focused missionary, I was pretty late conversion. Those still stuff I was working through my first year. And so I was like, oh, I prayed 1 yesterday. I thought that was pretty good. You only pray 4? Oh man.
Dang. Get it together, man.
No, but I think there was a certain like truth to that, where it's just like, even as somebody who didn't have as formed of a prayer life as Robert did, there was still a sense of like his prayer life may have been up here and I was like down here. There was still a sense of like, okay, I know where you are and where you want to get to. Like, I can still help you get there.
Yeah, I think you had the large scale vision. You kind of knew where he needed to go, and I think there were other aspects where you were being called to lead him in. It's not maybe not in prayer life.
But what was I gonna say? What were you saying?
We're talking about how it doesn't have to just be within discipleship.
Yeah,
and I think it's just like, I'm thinking of like, my close female friends, and it's just like, there's no discipleship there, but it's just like, I care about this person and I want to share life with this person, and this person helps me and helps me grow, and there are definitely people where you can have like those deep, authentic, virtuous friendships that I feel like discipleship maybe help facilitate it and maybe more an intentional aspect, but
I think it's a good model. Good model,
yes,
but it's not like every friendship needs to be like discipleship. You should, I mean, maybe you should ask your friends like how prayer's going, but like it's not like a structured like
Well, and I think too, like it comes to a point where it's just like, me and my friends are, we're mature enough in our faith, and there's enough of us that have like either gone to seminary or have gone through focused training or like have good theology training, where we understand and know. And we can just check in and we can be like, hey, I saw this, or, I noticed this, or, we don't have to talk about it. It just is. And I feel like that's like with us. And I think it's that, but then there are people who are still kind of learning, growing through things, and maybe that facilitation, might be helpful for them.
And there's still that like different life experiences, different like going through different things, like all of you guys, like, so Isaac, Gina just got married, so like if they came to me for like marriage questions, like I'm happy to help. Like, you know,
Yeah.
um,
I don't think I could
But-
help him as much.
and yeah, your example, yeah. Yeah. By the way, anybody listening, single Catholic man, good Catholic man over here. I will
Trying
say.
to be.
I will vouch. I will vouch for that. If you are looking interested, drop your Instagrams, your social media. It's a chat. I'll put his Instagram in the description. Feel free to slide in the DMs. Yeah, get Vermont. So you know, you guys. I'll
Make
leave it up
Vermont
to
great
you
again.
guys to coordinate whatever you can.
Build you a house.
What?
I can build him a house.
He can build a house. So look at that.
Might not last that long.
But yeah, it's another thing. It's like, yeah, once I buy a house, it's like, hey, I'm gonna ask this guy for for advice here.
You know those wounds that you caused me, Eugene, back in the day.
Well,
No, I forgave him. It's okay.
we've made up.
Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we did have like some rough times too.
Dude, yeah, I was, looking back, I feel like I was such a horrible student. I was so frustrated. I was so stubborn. Like, I just feel like God just is like, I'm going to give you this bucking bronco, and he's just going to,
I mean, like in fairness too, my first year, like I said, I wasn't like, I would say I wasn't fully there, right? Like, obviously, it's my first year on staff. I do remember. I remember us having a conversation. Me, you, and Joe. Joe, like mediating,
yeah.
because you're like, hey, I don't feel like Eugene's there enough. I don't know if you remember that.
Wow. I vaguely, but I don't think I did remember. And I think now it's coming back.
Yeah,
But, wow.
like we did have that. We did have
Did I
that
call
little.
you out in that? Oof.
Yeah, you spoke to Joe, and
Dang.
you're like, man, I don't think Eugene is around enough for me. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right.
You know what it is? I think you and Kelly started hanging out.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I realized, like, they like each other. They're probably going to date. And
Yep.
it's just like, Eugene's supposed to be here for, like, his students. Like, I'm supposed to be,
Yeah,
you know.
And that was good. That was a good like call out, right? And actually, I remember there's actually around that time, it's like, yeah, like admitting, it's like, yeah, I'm actually interested in Kelly, but I actually have something that I want to focus on. And I remember asking you for accountability.
Oof. Yeah. And
There was a few times in the Catholic
Yeah.
Center, you're just like, you're flirting a little too much here. You didn't say it, but you just looked at me like, and I'm like,
it makes me think of our good friend Eli. He was one of my disciples, and you know, Eli joined staff same time as me, and we were both at UConn. Or no, I was at UConn. He was at Coast Guard Academy, and this might out him to the girl that he had a crush on. Although I hope that she knew, but he had a massive crush on one of his teammates. And one of his disciples, they were cooking in the kitchen, and he was like being all flirty, and you know, he just gets this way. And then she turned around, and one of his Coast Guard guys, just his military kid, just picks Eli up, pins him against the wall, and says, "Get your crap together." And Eli's like, "Yes, sir." And it was just like, it's just the most beautiful but brutally honest. Like, you need to step it up, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
yeah. And I think those, I love those kinds of friendships, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, you definitely called me out. Like, you grilled me when I was applying for staff. Like, there's so many things where you're just like, yeah, you're not doing well this. I think you're just like, you're not being outward, like, you're not going out on campus. You're just kind of sheltering yourself at the Catholic Center. You need to go and be involved in all these clubs. And it's just like, dang, I hate that he's right. I hate it. But he's right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's one of the things too, like with friendships. The thing that I like note about like the friendships that I have now, like the lasting ones, right, is that I remember things, like moments. You remember moments. The sad thing is, like, a lot of the friends I have in college, like, I still talk with some here and there, right? Keep in touch here. There's some like my roommates. Like, I actually developed a pretty good relationship with my roommates. I still wish the best for them, but like, like because of my like where I was in my conversion, right? Like, I was far from God. I don't have a lot of memories of my time in college
Yeah.
because I blacked out. Let's be honest, chat. And then it's like when you think about like the quality of the friendships, right? It's like these friendships. It's like I think there's actually a song. It's like something about like to the nights that we don't remember, and something like that. I don't remember, some stupid song. But like yeah, it's like, oh great, you shared all these moments
You don't remember
that you don't remember.
Dang, that's tough.
That sounds so valuable.
That's
Thank you. It's like what are your favorite things that about like your spouse? Oh, I don't remember. Like, could you imagine that?
Yeah.
Like,
That'd
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know what I love about the birth of my son? I don't remember.
Yeah.
That I don't remember it. It's like, what? No.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about my son being born is the moment like I held him, and for the first time, it's like, oh my gosh, it's my son.
It's just like we're talking about, like, you know, all of our. I feel like I'm in this season of weddings. All my, and it's just like, it brings me so much joy. Like knowing with my guys getting married, he found the one, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, Isaac's wedding, being involved with his wedding was just such a blessing for me.
Yeah.
I remember going to your wedding. It's just like, wow, this is so cool. Like, these people, like it was like, okay, I love my family, care about like my cousins, like all the people getting married. It's like, dang, like I really want the best, and like they found it, and it's just like, you know, so much hope and joy in that, and it just elevates, I feel like, the ceremonies and the reception and the sacraments, and it's just like, let's go, like.
Yeah, and I think, I guess, wow. I talked about a lot about like the suffering that you suffer with friends, but I think the other side of that is that what you just talked about is like the joys you share in the joys of like your friends' lives in a very different way.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I feel like there's times there's like, I need to be real and honest with myself, and it's just like, no, I need to be joyful for this person. Yeah, you know, I might be struggling, I might be going for a rough patch, but like this person just, you know, graduated or got this promotion or got this things, like I need to be happy for them, I need to be excited for them. And it's just like, you know, it's beautiful when it's just like, oh wow, like you get to share, you know,
you just share in the joy, because
it's not just me, it's just like you know, like friendships, and it's just like, oh, like wow, like you're just like revealing to me, it's like I invited you to go hang out with Kelly for the first time, and I was just like, wait a minute, like wow, like I just wanted to hang out, and I wanted all my friends to be friends with each other. That's all I wanted. And it's just like, I get to share in that joy. I get to partake in that in a sense. And I feel like that's beautiful, because it's the same with Christ. Like Christ involves and invites us to, he doesn't need us, but he invites us to partake in building his kingdom. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was one of my gospel reflections. I don't know if you know this, but I do a gospel reflection every Saturday.
I think
and one of the things I talked about is like, do we share in like Christ's joy? Like, for example, like I'll go back to like one of my online friends who was recently confirmed, right?
Oh, praise God.
Yeah. And
cheers.
He had a reversion. Mark Joyful, for those who know him, like he was confirmed last year, and like actually like you share in that joy. Like he had a reversion. He came back to the church, and then he was confirmed. And it was like, like in a very real way, it's like, heck yeah, like it's exciting, like,
welcome home, like,
just sharing that joy, right? And it's the same thing with like friends. Any moments in their lives, like we share in the joy. That's the important thing. Like, and the reason why I was like, wow, because I didn't mention like get to this important part of friendship is because, recently, like I was talking to Kelly and some friends in. Actually, I gave this advice to Isaac and Gina at their wedding. Is that is that when people ask you about your marriage, like how's marriage, like talk about the joy. Because so many times people
we love criticism, we love the negativity.
People is like, I mean, marriage is like it's such a challenge. It's like, but if you just get through this, like, it's like, why do we think about that? And then we talk about the priesthood, we're like. It's like, there's some challenges, but oh my gosh, it's like so joyful. It's like the exact opposite. I was like, no, we should be talking about marriage the same way.
Yeah.
Like you just married somebody that you want to spend the rest of your life with. You should be pretty happy about it. Like obviously it's going to have its challenges, but talk about the joy. And I think that's why I was saying that, like, wow, like, why am I just now talking about this? But like, yeah, that's another thing of like friendship. Like, you share in the joy. Not only do you suffer with, you share in the joy.
Yeah, and I think it's beautiful as a church, like universal. I think the family, marriage is such a beautiful and real example of like, you support that person, so their victories are your victories. Like, like you have a stake in that. Like, like when Eli, who's now engaged, but when he was entering seminary, I wasn't like, oh yeah, I did all the work, dust my shoulders off. But it's like, I felt really blessed, but I was also like, wow, like I got to participate. I get to help form him as I don't want to take too much credit for Eli's formation, but it's just like I played a role. And it's just like, it was really awesome when he said yes, because I felt very proud and very like joyful and happy. And it was just,
how did you feel when he said no later?
Well, the thing is, I trusted him so much. We had we were so close. It's like, I trusted his discernment wholeheartedly. And I think he was actually disappointed when he came back. He kind of surprised us, and he came back and he's like, Nick, like, aren't you like wondering why I'm back? I'm like, no, I'm sure you have a good reason. It's like, oh, I left seminary. He's like, cool, like I trust his discernment, like I do wholeheartedly. And so it's just like, and now he's engaged and gonna get married, and I'm so excited for that wedding. But it's just beautiful to partake in that, because like we're one church. Like, you talk about like the part in the gospel, it's like you have the hand, the foot, the tongue, the eye. It's like, yes, victory for one is a victory for all. And we need to celebrate that and encourage that, because I feel like hope is so powerful in our world, and we need to amplify that more. I feel.
So I mean, I think we said a lot about friendship, and I think that the one thing that I want to end on is just bring it back to the importance of friendship in regards to bringing light to the world. I think that I wrote it in the description, right? We have a world that's seemingly lost the meaning of friendship, right? You see such shallow like friendships so often. And that our friendship can actually be light in the world. Like it's even now, or even as a focused missionary, like whenever I would think about mission, it's that cheesy song, and I hate the song, but it's like, "They'll know we're Christians by our love." It's absolutely cheesy. Yes. I absolutely hate it. But there is a little bit. There's an element of truth to it. We'll put it that way. There is an element of truth to it, and that I don't know if you're team director of this, but when I was team director, I always said this to my team: these are your priorities on campus. 1, love God. 2, love your team. 3, love the students. And your team always came before the students. And the reason for that is that the students need an example.
Yes, they need to witness the love within the team.
If you don't love your team, the students don't have an example to look to. And it's evident when you can look at campuses.
Students
know.
Know.
When you look at campuses where team life is a struggle, like the students see it. It's evident. But I think also that was one of the things that actually helped prepare me for marriage. Right? It's like the same thing.
Your kids will know.
You love your spouse.
So good.
And that's how your child learns to love. Like your example of love for one another is what they have for love. And so in a world that seems to have lost the meaning of friendship, like your example is actually going to be light. And so we talked about a few things, and I think they're important. Practical is like, actually, and I think it's important to look at your friendships and take inventory almost. It's like, where are my friendships? And I'm not saying like, oh, if your friendship is at this level or this level, it's like, okay, time to drop them.
I think that's important too, because like I gave a talk on authentic friendship when I was at UConn, and I had a student be like, whoa, like I need to, and I was just like, okay, I pulled him aside and was like, okay, like I gave a lot of information to you. I want you to just know where you are. I wouldn't say go out and, start pruning branches right off the bat. Pray about it, try to see if you can grow and bring those dead branches alive.
Yeah, the point,
those friendships.
The point is to give you something to strive for,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah.
Give you a friendship to strive for.
Yeah, yeah.
And give you that model. And so, yeah, hopefully we did that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, it's just, so you're talking, it's like my team director, Mike, he was so good at like knowing when the team needed team time. And there's one day he was like, hey guys, cancel your schedules for the day. We're going to Mystic, Connecticut. We're going to go enjoy ourselves by the beach. We're going to go just, we need a day where we can love each other.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I felt so loved by my team, and I learned how to love my team. And our students, like, it was just like they saw that, they wanted to hang out with us, they wanted to be with us, and it was just like there was so much fruit coming from that because they wanted to be a part of what we had in our team.
I think you brought up an important point. And if there are any folks, missionaries listening to this, if your students desire to hang out with your team life is doing well.
Yes.
That like what I said earlier, like if your friendship should be Trinitarian, right? And it's the same with like team life. Your team life should not feel closed off. Like your students should not feel like, hey, like they're that group, they're their group. I'm outside of that group. No, it's like they should be desiring to be a part of that group, because it means that they recognize the love that you share for one another. And again, same thing for the friendships. Like if you are friends with somebody and like people see that, like again, your friendship needs to be a light of the world.
Yes.
Like that, they're gonna see that, and that's gonna be appealing.
Yeah, I know that there's times where our team at UConn, we would intentionally invite a couple of our students to come do things with us because we wanted to, like, I guess, reveal like what's going on behind the scenes and show them like, hey, this is what it takes. This is why it's important. This is the steps to see the end product of the finish.
Yeah, and I think, and I think that's again what I want to leave you with is just. It's not a message of cut out those friendships that aren't good enough, but discern which friendships like need to take that step further.
Yeah. Are those people reciprocating back? Are they running in the same direction? Are they being like, for me, it's just like honesty, vulnerability, reciprocation. Like, are they running in the same direction in that respect? I think those are just like things. When you see those things, it's like, okay, yes, okay, those are tools that are there. And if they're not there, try to develop them. Yeah. But if they're not being developed, then maybe at that point it's like, okay, maybe this is for somebody else to come and ignite that fire later on. Yeah,
and maybe it's like you see things that like barriers in your friendships. It's like your friendship needs to grow. It's like maybe you see that next step that you need to take, right? And it's like, all right, I need to actually be a little bit more vulnerable with this friend, because I think that if we have that deeper friendship, that we can actually help each other grow more. So that's another important aspect of just discern those things. So that's the message of it. The message of authentic friendship is not to downplay any friendships, not to say cut out any friendships. I mean, there might be some friendships that you cut out, but the main thing is discernment, and I think that's important. Is to discern what friendships you need, what friendships you don't, and discern where your friendships need to go.
And I would say just glorify God for those friendships. Recognize where they're coming from, and recognize like when the devil's trying to attack you too, because he's going to try to tear them down. He's going to try to rip them up. So just give praise where it's due.
So maybe that's the next topic is I also need to talk about is like boundaries. You do need those boundaries. Like I think we didn't touch on this, but it's important. Is that like with friendships? Like I think that a lot of the things that Nick and I talked about in our friendship, like I wouldn't talk about with like another woman. Like, like I would not have that intimate friendship with another woman unless it was Kelly, who's my wife.
I definitely feel like at a time there was like probably 30 people who are just like I put my life on blast, but now it's like, oh, there probably make 6 or 7 people, maybe 8 people that I'm gonna talk intimately and deep about these things, but that's it.
Boundaries. That maybe we'll have a podcast episode on boundaries. I don't know who we'll have for that, but that's an important topic actually.
Yes.
in regards to friendships is knowing where to draw the boundaries
Yes.
of intimacy.
Yes, because I think it also stems out of love. It's just like, I care enough for you. I don't want to use you.
Mhm.
I don't want. I need to protect you from using me, but also like me from using you, and yeah,
Yeah.
don't want to manipulate you.
Yeah, I think I'll end it there. Yeah, I'm serious. I'm gonna drop Nick's Instagram in the description. So single man, single Catholic man. So there you go. There you go, chat. Any viewers? Yeah, appreciate you for reaching out to him in advance. But yeah, I think I just want to end it in prayer.
Yes,
And
please.
yeah, one thing before we do that. So last episode we had a discussion about theology of the body with Father John.
Terrible priest, horrible.
And I mentioned on there that we will be having a book study. So we're gonna have details. I'm still working out the details. It's just been such a busy week for work. But yes, I'm going to put out a Google form, so it'll be in this description. It'll be in the description of the Theology of the Body podcast. Most importantly, join the Discord. That's probably your best bet for getting information, or follow me on Twitter.
Subscribe.
That's all in the description. Make sure to do all that because yes, the details are coming out for that. I'm gonna give about a month for signups. So through June.
I didn't know that. I gotta sign up for that.
Yeah.
I missed the whole retreat on theology of the body, and it's just
You can get just important for everybody. You can get the book for free from Dynamic Catholic. You just pay for shipping.
Oh, cool.
So and it's like $5-6 for shipping. And in the spirit of being a missionary, you will again, I'll have more details, but in that I'll have a Google form for signups. In there, if you really can't afford a book, like if you can't afford the $6, there'll be an option to put in there. I will reach out to somebody to sponsor you to get the book. So don't let that be a detractor from you joining Theology of the Body for Beginners, which is the book, Theology of the Body for Beginners. Don't let that be something that prevents you from joining the book study if you are interested in that, because questions. Yes, sorry, Derek, thank you for pointing that out. If you do have questions, we can make some time after prayer to answer a Q&A. If you want to throw those in the chat now, we will answer those questions. But yes, don't let that $6, $5 be a reason for you not to do the book study. If you want to be in the book study, again, I'll have the form out. Just stay in touch on Twitter, Discord, all of the things. They're all in the description. Do that. And then you'll get an info, and I will make sure I find somebody to sponsor your book. We'll work that out. I don't want that to be a reason for you not to join, just that you can't afford the $6. I know it's not much, but some people that's a lot. And I will make sure I will find somebody to pay for it, even if it's out of my own pocket, if I have to.
You could use Max allowance.
just
Max, we can't get you.
Well, Max has money. Max has money.
What?
We opened up a savings account. And I gave him some money.
Nice. He's
good
probably
father,
doing, what's that commercial where the kids are trading online?
Yeah.
E-Trade or whatever.
Yeah, E-Trade.
He's probably a billionaire now.
But yeah, I'll include that in the descriptions. But yeah, again, if you have any questions, now would be the time to throw them in the chat. We will have a Q&A. And we're gonna pray, close in prayer, and then I'll give you guys about another few minutes after that. If you still have questions that you want to ask, we're happy to answer those questions. But I guess we'll just do this like how we usually do. I'll start, and then I'll pause. If you want to throw anything else you want to pray for, just throw it in, and then I'll close us out in in a Hail Mary. Right, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear God, we thank you so much for the gift that you've given us through this friendship, for the many years, many years, for all the experiences we've gone through. I pray for everybody listening, for all my friends, for all those here who, as I said, listening, that may have gained something from this, that not necessarily hear us, but hear you, Lord, in how you're calling them to be missionary disciples, where you're calling them to discern their friendships, help them to grow those friendships into what you envisioned for them to be. I pray for those who maybe are in situations where they realize that they have friendships that they need to cut ties with. I pray that you will give them the strength to overcome any fears, anything keeping them from doing what you desire for them. I pray for friend Nick. I pray that you will continue to guide him towards sainthood. That you would continue to use me as an instrument in his life as his friend, to encourage him, to be to be able to provide the wisdom that you desire to present to him through me. Thank you for the many experiences that we had in Vermont. Just through your will, we just give you glory and praise for all those things.
Lord Jesus Christ, just thank you for how much you love us, for all the gifts that you send us, for the people in our lives that you put in to lead us closer to you. I specifically want to pray for all those who have been wounded by friendships, that you give them the courage to come to you so you may heal them, that they may be able to forgive those who wounded them, that just the spirit of courage for people to reach out, to call each other out, to challenge each other, to pursue, to be confident, to use the gifts of the Holy Spirit, to pursue authentic and virtuous friendship. Lord, I just ask that you open our eyes that we may see the people who are running with us, the people who are calling us to a higher level, and that we may be aware of all the things that you do in our lives. I want to pray for Eugene and Kelly's marriage, for the gift of love that it is, that they may be strong and faithful parents, for Max. Pray for my future spouse. And just that we may pursue God and inspire others to do likewise. We ask this through our Mother Mary as we pray. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Let's see. Questions? Yes. Where do you recommend starting if you want authentic friendship but have no good people around? In particular, how can you build it when adult life is so busy and isolated?
Oof.
I think that. So yeah, that's a good question, dear. I think you need to reach out to what's available to you, right? Think about where you spend a lot of your time and who are the people there. I think that in kind of the discernment, right, for like mission as an example, like who are the people that God's calling you to minister to is the people that he put in your life, right? Like he's not calling you to convert the person who's in Africa if you live in the United States. Like probably not, unless you meet them online somehow. But most practically speaking, it's gonna be where you spend your time most. Like,
your daily life.
Yeah, your regular. And I think that one place to start too is look at the friendships that you have now, like we were talking about, right? Discern, like look at your friendships and discern, like maybe you do have that one friend that you kind of keep in touch with but not really. Maybe God's calling you to reach out to that person more.
I think I'm just hearing Ed Sheeran in the back of my head. The club isn't the best place to meet a girl, so the bar is where I go. And I just take an account of where the places that you go. Where are you going to find good people? Are you going to find people I just okay, I'm going to church. There's probably going to be good people there.
Yeah.
Hopefully, God willing, I'm going to start meeting and trying to introduce myself to those people.
Yeah.
And it might take a little more for someone who's introverted. But for me, I'm just walk up and like, hi, I haven't seen you. Nice to meet you. I'm Nick. But it's just like, okay, where do I know that people who are good?
Yes.
Where am I going to find those people? And if you're not in and around those places, you might have to reorient and change where you hang out and what you do.
That is important distinction. Not just where do I spend most of my time. I mean, you should think about that, and then think about, is that a good place to spend your time? And then I mean, maybe to some extent too is adult life is so busy and isolated, but yeah, it's looking at like, what are the things that you are spending your time on? Could you spend that time on something else? Put yourself in a better position to meet people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think of that a lot of people like don't put themselves in that position of like me. It's like I'm not gonna call out any names. I know somebody who's
Nick
like
Maille, that's who he wants to call out.
who's like looking for a spouse. And it's like, where are you going?
He is calling me out.
I'm actually not. But maybe it does apply to you. So if you're you think I'm talking to you, then maybe that's what, but that is the thing is like, are you putting yourself in a good position to actually meet people? So
I think too, it's like, what are you doing in your free time? Because I think for me, it's like my hobbies, the things that I do. Like, are you doing things like, oh, okay, I'm gonna learn how to do this. I'm gonna take cooking classes. I'm gonna meet people. I'm gonna do a dance class. Or it's like, I'm gonna learn how to fish, or I'm gonna join this community softball team or volleyball or whatever it is. Join a book club. But it's just like, putting yourself out there in those things and trying to find people, and then from there you can figure out whether or not they have those tools, those foundations to build authentic friendships around.
So it's a combination of discerning where you put yourself into position, the places you put yourself at, where you are, if those are good places, and if they are good places for opportunities to meet people for that, and then put yourself out there. And like Nick said, we're both extroverts, so maybe we should have had somebody introverted also on this on this podcast to talk about it. But put yourself out there and put yourself in a position where who are the people you're meeting regularly with? If you work with like friends, or work with whoever you work with, maybe there are potentials for friends. Like I'll give an example. I have a coworker that I describe him as a secular Joe Moran, because he reminds me a lot of Joe, but in a very not Catholic way, but surprisingly developed a pretty deep friendship on certain things, and it's just like that openness to that. So like, look, I guess, at the people that God's put in your life and make sure that you are putting yourself.
I would say for introverts too, it's just, if you have, like a friend, a coworker or something of, just try new things, do new things with them, or just try to find someone who can introduce you to things. And it's funny, you look at Myers-Briggs, like my sister and I are like the perfect match for she's like extremely introverted in a way where she needs other people to introduce her to friends, and I am that type of person where I want all my friends to meet each other. And so she's like, oh, you're great because you will introduce me to everybody. And I secretly desire that, but I'm petrified of it.
I'm gonna give one secret too. I think that a lot of times, maybe you can maybe relate, maybe you don't, but I am extroverted. But that does not necessarily mean that I am not afraid to talk to somebody.
Yes.
So I think that the misconception between extrovert and introvert is that like one likes to talk to people, the other doesn't. The idea of it is the energy. Like you gain, you get riled up. By talking to people. Like Nick and I can talk for hours.
I could be dead.
Into 1 a.m.
I could be dead, and then as soon as you put like 6 people in a room, I'm like, I have enough energy for 4 days.
So there's a misconception that extroverts are just happy to talk to random people all the time. Maybe it's a little bit easier for us because we do like to talk and meet people, but it's not necessarily the case. I am a great example of somebody who's like, it takes a lot for me to go take that first step of actually talking to somebody. So introverts, I think you have the same thing. It might be a little bit harder, but
I feel like I realized at UConn, one of my teammates I was like, oh, she's such an extrovert. She wasn't.
Yeah.
She was just introverted, but very.
Outgoing.
She loves talking.
Yeah.
And then I had an extroverted friend who was very quiet, loves being around people, but never spoke, never talked or anything like that. And so, yeah.
When I get shy, it helps me to remember that people like being liked. They like when you ask about them, and they like when you invite them places.
I would also feel like people like sharing about themselves. So if you're trying to figure out how to talk to people, ask a lot of questions.
That's a hack.
That way. It's such a struggle for me because I just love talking about myself.
Sure,
because I'm great.
Can't confirm.
I'm great in the mold of Saint Joseph, but except in speech. But it's just asking a lot of questions because people like to talk about themselves, and that way they feel good about themselves, and that allows you to be like, oh, I noticed these things. I actually know some things about this. And that's how you can start talking.
And
to
it's
people.
Easy way to get to know somebody,
Yes.
and then you eventually find something that you both have in common. Yeah, like I remember an example. Do you remember? Shoot, I forget his name. Remember that kid we met at the
yes,
he played about soccer.
Yes, we were in the campus union, and Eugene was really trying to get me to meet new kids and whatnot.
Yeah.
And there's this kid who was wearing a AS Roma.
Yeah. Was it? I thought it was Arsenal. I don't know.
Maybe it was Arsenal.
No.
It was a soccer team that I liked. I like both those clubs. And so she's like, oh, and I think we like watched half the game with him and started talking, and then I joined his intramural soccer team, and I think it was my senior year, so I graduated, but like I got to know and hang out with him and his friends for the rest of the semester, and it was just kind of like.
Yeah, I made the connection. He did a like soccer club thing with UC Santa Barbara, which is where I went to college.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that. Yeah, he's like, oh yeah, like I did like a little camp thing with them. I was like, oh, cool. So it's like you just ask about them, boom.
Yep. Yeah.
Easy connections.
In the Northeast, when people don't like talking to each other.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what we'd say on that. Other question: do friendships have to go through each stage, or can it be authentic friendship right off the bat? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I would maybe side on there. You definitely have to go through stages. You might not be acquaintances, and maybe it may be a rapid succession. Like for me, like when Eli met his fiance and she kind of came for the first time, it was like you like Eli. Like very quickly, it's like you're in the group. Like like you don't have to try. Like we know him and we trust. But I feel like when we were talking about those hardships, those burdens, those struggles, like there are experiences that I feel like you need to go through to kind of get to those deeper levels. So I think the early stages you might skip a level or two. But I think those latter stages, they're definitely things where you need to go through things to earn that. There's trust that needs to be built.
Yeah, I think that I don't think you skip necessarily, but the time or the pace is different. Like you can get through certain stages much quicker than others. Like at some point you have to be just acquaintances, right?
Yes,
like you can't really avoid it, even if it's immediately when you talk. It's like, hi. It's like your acquaintances. Like, what's your name? Is my name? Great. You're now acquaintances. I don't think you skip that
we're
step.
best friends.
Maybe stepbrothers.
Yeah. Did we just become best friends?
Yup. So yeah, I don't think you skip stages, but I think depending on the person, like especially if you like really click with the person, like you can accelerate through those stages, right?
Yeah.
But like I mentioned earlier too, like even some of the people that I've met online, it's like our only connection, like our first immediate connection is like we're both Catholic, right?
Yeah.
And
there's a level of trust.
There's a level of trust that like, okay, yeah, I think this person actually wants to be the best, like wants me to become a saint. So there's that level of trust that I can be open about like certain things with them and talk to them about certain things, right? It breaks the barrier, but you still go through.
Yeah, and I also feel like there's got to be an element of, we talked about wounds. There are definitely people who have been very, very harshly wounded, And it's like there are people. It's like they struggle to trust, and so it depends on certain people. I'm very easy in trusting people.
We'll talk about that. Just kidding.
But yeah, so I definitely feel like there are definitely other factors outside of
Yeah.
things, and I found like there's some coworkers or other people where it's just like, man, I've been very vulnerable for months, and it takes like a long time for them to be like, okay, you're okay. I can be more vulnerable. I can drop my wall, take off the mask with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And I think it's important too because there's some people which is like, yeah, we're just not going to be, I've had teammates or coworkers who are just like, yeah, I desire friendship. You do not. This is what it's gonna be. Like,
Right.
we're not. It's not a bad thing if you meet someone and you just aren't gonna be authentic friends. You know,
Yeah.
God's gonna put people and call you to people.
yeah. So yeah, I think that you can't skip, but the time that you spend in different like kind of stages does vary,
Yes.
and how
yeah.
quickly you get through those. Can you form authentic friendships online? Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. I think you can.
Yeah.
But again, I still think it's different of the physicality of actually being in someone's presence. And yeah, we talked about like an
Yeah.
example, the Eucharist, right? Like you can pray, and that's great, but receiving Jesus in the Eucharist, that physical intimacy, like oneness with God, is beyond.
Yeah, I think
Comparison.
we were talking around it, and I feel like it to be clear, you can have authentic friendships, but I feel there is fruit and desire to eventually meet in person, or, depending on circumstances. But there will always be a desire to meet in person or to be friends, and so you can start there, but you're gonna want to progress it. You're gonna want to take that next step.
I think that is the natural progression. If you think of it like just without being too like deep about it, like just think about like your online friendships. Like how many of them do you actually desire to actually meet in person? I think that's the natural draw, and I think that just speaks into the natural inclination of the person is that we want to spend time in each other's presence. And I think that does give the friendship more depth, right?
Yes, it definitely does.
Yeah, like even an example of us, like we were talking on the phone a few days ago. Like I still prefer that you're here and that we're talking versus on the phone, as great as being on the phone is.
Yes.
And the same thing, like I mentioned,
Yeah, I
dating
feel
my
like
wife.
They're gifts and fruits that we can receive
Yeah.
in person that we cannot receive.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't have authentic friendship.
Yeah, it can be authentic online, but it's still better in person.
Yes.
Yeah. I think Kelly just gave advice about how to meet people.
Yep.
Just ask about them. Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for being on this episode.
I'm
Yeah.
more than blessed to be a part of it. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, it was good. I was glad to have you. Again, chat, single Catholic man. I will put his Instagram in the description. Yeah, I will vouch for him. He's a good man. He's a good man. As much as he has flaws. Who doesn't? Longest episode yet, my wife points out. Yes, it is.
We could talk forever.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to, I mean, how many times did we do this
Dude,
on campus? Like me, you, Eli, like all the guys just sitting around just like talking for hours.
Yeah. I think they made a rule on campus about us because we would stay at like weeknights 3 a.m., 2 a.m., and they were just like, yeah, you have to leave by 11.
I don't necessarily think it was a time thing, and I think it was mostly because Nick was there and he was loud. And Monsignor and Father John were trying to sleep upstairs. Like I could still hear Nick.
Yep.
It might even still haunt them to this day.
Yep.
Of just like they're
no,
trying to
those
sleep.
Are
It's
just
like, do I
voice
hear Nick?
recordings that I left.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you everyone for hanging out. If you're watching this live, yeah, appreciate you. Make sure to give the video a like because it does help get this video recommended to other people. If you're not watching this live, I appreciate you watching anyway. Yeah, comment below if you have any other questions. I do check the comments and will respond to comments if you have questions. And make sure to check the description for Nick's Instagram if you are interested. Again, single Catholic man.
AJ Homo.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Praise God.
Yeah. Praise God. Friendships are good. Friendships are good. Yeah. So, again, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more info about the book study. Highly recommend it.
I'm joining.
Theology of the Bud. There you go. You don't only have to slide into his DMs on Instagram. You can join the book study and interact with him there. But yeah, it'll be done over Discord, so it'll be a video call. So we could have people in person, face to face. Discuss it. So it'll be good. It'll be a good time. Now lower your voices for Max, please. My wife says. It's okay.
Last night we were chatting and he could hear me and he's like, "Who's that in the other room?"
Yeah.
Me who that is.
I hear stranger. That's not a voice I recognize. But yeah, thank you again. All the information that I mentioned, I'll throw in the description. And thanks for tuning in. Yeah. God bless. Oh, I don't have a button for this one. Shoot. Where is my mouse?
It's on the. You see it?
Yep. And I can't read. Is it this one? All right. I think this is the outro. So I'll see you guys next time. God bless.